Hey guys, it's Pokey Dude here with Misaki, and welcome back to Witch on the Holy Night. So last time we were in the middle of investigating Sojiro's mysterious job. Oh, right. No, don't save. What? Did I do the wrong thing? Oh, huh? Oh, okay. I usually don't load from the middle of a story like this, so yeah. So I'll go first.
So the first one is probably her?
The first one, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, that's as much as I know about it.
Jeez, everything about this is as suspicious as it gets.
Sojiro seems caught up in a strange part-time job. I'll wait for you in Central Park to talk about it.
You narrate? Or,
10 minutes
yeah.
has passed since he had received this call from Aoko and returned to the park.
Oh yeah, never mind. It's an Aoko scene now, so I guess I'll narrate. Tobimaro felt a light migraine coming on after hearing about the situation. The young girl and the old man from before were nowhere to be seen.
Well, you don't have to tell me that. I'm not trying to be judgmental about what someone does for work, but this just doesn't seem right. He hasn't told you anything about this?
Sorry, but I haven't heard anything. He's super secretive about his job. He said he can't talk to anyone about it or something.
Yeah, he's always so tight-lipped about anything that involves other people. He's not going to talk easily.
I guess he must be pretty loyal if even you think that about him.
What's that supposed to mean?
I'm not implying anything, I'm just saying. You get mad about pretty much everything. If you're watching his back outside of school, you must really like him.
Not really. It's just that if he causes any problems, we're going to take the heat for it in the student council. This is just risk aversion, plain and simple.
Okay, so you're just doing your duty.
That's right. Any problems with that?
No, none. I respect it, actually. You're the perfect student council president. I mean, it's not even a school day, and you're out here just to make sure our school's reputation is upheld.
You really don't have to say it like that. Though, I suppose you're right.
Aoko's glare seemed to suggest she wasn't interested in hearing any objections. This little bluff was rather charming to Tobimaro, who was well aware of Sojiro and Aoko's current living situation. At any rate, I guess it's my duty as vice president to tag along with this investigation then. You continue investigating Sojiro for the reputation of our school, of course. I'll provide support however I can, and I will watch out for Sojiro as his friend. Tobimaro said he would do as Aoko asked, but for some reason she did not seem satisfied.
Now that it's all settled, let's get started. Or is that
Wait,
his asking?
wait. You should at least know where he's working, right? What's the address?
I tried to tell him and find that out, actually, but I got nowhere. All I know is that he turned and walked towards 2nd Street from the train station.
The vice president was used to this. He didn't bother saying anything about her going so far as to tell Sojiro. 2nd Street, huh? There's just a bunch of pachinko parlors and arcades around there. I can't think of anywhere they'd be paying him tens of thousands of yen a day.
I know, right? I mean, if I knew a place like that, I'd be inclined to work there myself. I just want to make sure, but the only place you can gamble in Misaki is the pachinko parlor, right?
According to my dad, there are no gambling spots that violate the Entertainment Business Act in town. He said the owner of the pachinko parlor is an agreeable sort who seems happy sticking to his current business.
Yeah, I know. I just wanted to make sure.
I think that's her.
That just makes this whole thing even more mysterious. I can't think of any other way than gambling that you can make money that quickly.
Yeah, nothing except maybe selling his body. Maybe people are paying him for a night.
Huh?
There was a slight delay in Aoko's reaction. It took her a few seconds to register what he was saying, but then her jaw dropped.
Wait. Selling his body? Are you serious?
Oh, chill out. I mean as a model or something. I heard they make pretty good money.
Yeah. I heard that too, and art school kids are usually pretty rich. Maybe that's all it is. That's not so bad.
I mean, he would be nude, of course.
So he is getting naked for money.
Without any real information to go on, the conversation was quickly diverging further from the topic at hand. Without knowing the location or type of work, there really wasn't much to talk about.
Let's try to tell him again tomorrow. It'll be hard to lose him if there's two of us.
Yeah, you're right. We don't have any other clues at the moment, so let's just pick this up tomorrow. All we know is he's making lots of money, and that's not really... Tobimaro furrowed his brow. It seemed he had thought of something. His expression turned more dire by the second.
What's wrong, Tobimaru? Did you remember something?
Kind of. I just remembered one other idiot who's been making a lot of cash recently. Since about 3 days ago, he's been flaunting a lot of money and going to all these expensive mixer parties. And he's in the same class as Sojiro. There were a few seconds of silence. Aoko nodded. She had put two and two together.
I know who you're talking about.
The two immediately left the park to go and find the suspect. Do you remember where Sojiro got the suggestion for a shady job?
Yep, his buddy.
What's happening? No, I can't turn down an invite if I'm in the middle of studying. I'm here to party, guys. Even if I'm in the middle of studying. Suspect A was apprehended with ease. Aoko and Tobimaro were both in the student council, so they knew their target would be at school for remedial lessons. Tobimaro got a girl in Kinomi's class to tell him he had some good news to share outside. Kinomi took the bait and came running out the school's front gate as fast as he could. Since it's two guys and one girl, you want to take over for narration?
Okay.
Hey, sorry to call you out when you're trying to study. No worries. I was actually just using school as an excuse to skip my job, but then that was boring too, so I was just having a nap in the nurse's office. And that's when I got the call from you. So I'm all ready to party. What's going on?
Hinomi gave a double thumbs up to show that he was really ready to have some fun.
I thought you'd be out and about, so I'm glad I caught you. I heard you've been holed up in the arcade for the past few days. Yeah. I was just giving out free games and stuff, which is fun, but not so much once you run out of cash. Plus, I'm not really interested in becoming friends with punks from other schools. And it's all guys in there. I don't girls like hanging out in arcades. Anyway, that's all in the past. No point in talking about dough that's already spent. Easy come, easy go. Let's focus on the now. You're rich, right? You feel like taking a broke guy like me out on the town or what? Sure, but first this bigwig here has a few questions for you. Huh?
Hello there, Kinomi. Do you mind telling me a little about all this money you came into recently? Kinomi's expression went blank. If anyone could sniff out danger, it was him, and it stank like his impending doom.
Well, you see, I really need to get back to studying, so is it okay if I head back?
Of course, once you answer all my questions. We don't have much time either, so I hope you'll confess quickly. So again, tell me about this money you recently came into. I know you make around 20,000 yen a month for your part-time job. I don't think that's quite enough to live like a king for 3 days. It seemed the next logical question would be to ask if he had begun a life of crime.
Why is this even any of your business? You're treating me like a criminal. I don't have anything to confess. This isn't fair. What's going on?
Nothing yet. We just heard about some students who recently came into a significant amount of money and we're looking into it. A job that pays tens of thousands of yen a day is very tempting to a broke student, but we haven't heard of any such jobs reported to the school. It's our job as the student council to be on the lookout for any dangers to our students, that's all. Aoko was still smiling as she inched closer to Kinomi. She had never spoken to him this nicely after what he had done at the entrance ceremony. That alone was enough to make him think that he was in big trouble.
Really? I haven't heard anything about that. Or heard about anything like that. And, my case is different. I was just using money I'd saved up. It's just before Christmas, so I thought I'd get a bit wild with my spending. Sort of a cleansing of the spirit, you know? Isn't this time of year usually when people are trying to save money?
Now, Tsukiji. Let's be more sensitive. That being said, I hate to point this out, but it's obvious that Kinomi here has no date for Christmas Eve. It would be a shame if word of that got around school.
I totally have a date. Seriously. Also, you're the one being insensitive here.
Oh, really? Then I guess you have some money saved up for your big Christmas Eve date then.
Of course I do. Extra income and savings are two separate things. Look, my dad is super strict about watching my bank statements. He'd yell at me the moment he saw anything odd, thinking I was doing something bad. And my sister searches my room, so I can't hide anything there. They even found the porn mags that hid up in the ceiling. They found an envelope full of cash, so they'd take me down to the police station. So I used the money right away.
Kinomi laughed awkwardly, as if he was ashamed. He wasn't even aware of just how much he had let slip. Oh, extra income? That's not what you said earlier.
No, I mean... Oh, sorry, we can't see their expressions at all on the screen because of our positions at the setup here. Maybe I should shrink this, but I don't have time to get an overlay ready or anything. Oh, well. No, I mean, it was just a bonus for my part-time job. They just gave me an extra 5,000 yen. Just a little. It's nothing crazy.
So why were you talking about an envelope full of cash?
I'm talking myself into a hole here. Are you trying to trap me or something? You're getting a little close. You're kind of scaring me. Also, aren't you wearing boots? You know, this feels oddly familiar.
Kinomi backed away slowly. Kinomi, do I have to remind you that we're running short on time here? I don't want to have to get physical with you.
Threat of...
The threat of a kick to the face from Aoko was enough to show him that she was serious.
Okay, I'll talk. Yes, I am making extra income from a new part-time job. I got a bonus for introducing Shizuki to them, that's all.
What did you just say? If Kinomi really was working at the same part-time job as Sojiro, she wanted to get as much information from him as she could. This was the exact response she wanted from Kinomi, if not better. But she felt dizzy from the implications. So you get a bonus for getting other people to join? That sounds like... It was the oldest trick in the book for pyramid schemes and other unscrupulous business practices.
It's not what you think. Shizuki said he was looking to make some extra money, so I told him about this kind of shady job.
This went all the way back to before final exams. Kinomi told Sojiro about a job he'd heard from an older student. Since the job required a kind, honest young man, Kinomi reluctantly gave up on it for himself and instead passed it on to a friend that he thought fit that description. I can't believe you did that to someone you consider a friend. You yourself knew it sounded shady. What were you thinking?
Huh? Why wouldn't I pass something like this on to a friend? Dude needed help, so I tried to help him out. Plus, we both profited.
Well, yeah, but then you have to do your due diligence first, before you tell them about something like that.
It's way too much effort for a guy like me. I don't think you understand how friendship between guys works. You realize we're all dumb, right?
I do start to believe that the more I look at you, honestly. Hang out with him, Tobimaru.
Okay, that's enough. You can lecture him later. It'll take at least a full day to reform someone as dense as him. Hey, come on, give me a little credit at least. I can reform in a day. I'll probably forget everything once I sleep on it, though. Hey, at least you're self-aware. It's easier than talking to someone who doesn't realize they're an idiot. There's not that many people who realize that compassion is not for other people's benefit at such a young age.
That makes sense. I guess I can see how you two would get along then.
Wait, huh? Are you both trying to pick on me? I thought you were praising me just now.
We're not praising you.
Definitely not. I thought so.
With Kinomi leading the way, Aoko and Tobimaru arrived at the part-time job in question. They moved past the new entertainment district in the front in front of the station, and into the seedy part of 2nd Street. Aoko pointed to where she had lost Sojiro when she was following him. It was right around here, so Kinomi. Where is this place?
Just over there.
Kinomi pointed at a 4-story office building. The entrance was on one side of the first floor. At first glance, it looked no different from an apartment complex. The hallway on the first floor continued around to the back of the building. The stairs were located at the beginning of that hallway and were the first thing you saw after entering. Let's go into that back alley. Aoko hurried off into the back alley, where they were not likely to be seen. 3 students stuck out like a sore thumb in an entertainment district like this. So, what goes on in here? You said it was an office, but what's the work like?
Huh? You're asking me? That's literally all I know. I just heard about the job from that student. I don't know the details. I brought Sojiro here. They gave me the money, and that was it.
Their top suspect just admitted he knew no further details. Hosuke Kinomi, co-defendant, or perhaps who they thought might have been the main culprit, was really no more than an annoying witness. Well, this is no good. I still can't believe you're this irresponsible, Kinomi. Have you ever seen any westerns? Do you know what they do with the informants who are no longer useful?
I don't really watch many movies, honestly. I know I have seen Sailor Suit and Machine Gun, though. Well, it's because I think the actress is hot. I don't know if that's a real movie or not, but...
That's too bad. You should at least watch for a few dollars more sometime. The informant in that film meets an untimely demise, by the way.
Are you serious? Your Highness, you need to put a collar on this girl. She's like a wild dog over here. Tsukiji? Why are you making that face? Do you know something about the building? This is bad. I know all about it. There's a fraudulent sales company that just came into town. They're a complete racket.
Aoko was sad to hear that the truth was as bad as she thought. Kinome seemed confused as usual.
Are you sure about that? Oh, definitely. My dad heard it from his secretary, and she wouldn't lie. They front any kind of new... That's their kind of new religion, but they're actually selling down quilts. They target the elderly and sell them these super low-quality quilts at extremely marked-up prices. That's a leased office, so after they make their money here for a month or so, they're probably planning on skipping town. Sojiro is most certainly being scammed. He's the perfect target for a group like that.
Tobimaru slumped his shoulders in defeat. Aoko, however, was already in full-on battle mode. I'll put a stop to this, and then I'm gonna string you up on the school's flagpole, Kinome.
What? You mean you're gonna hang me? That's murder, you know. Wait a second, Aozaki. Something's not right here. Sojiro had wads of cash, right? Then how is he being scammed?
You're right. I got so caught up with Kinome that I forgot about all the money. So does that mean?
Right, if he was being scammed, he'd be the one losing money. But he's making money. I hope it isn't true, but maybe Sojiro is the one doing the scamming.
I can't believe it. Do you really think he joined a group of scammers?
Are you kidding me? Who in the right mind would be duped by Shizuki? He couldn't lie his way out of a paper bag. There's no way he's out here scheming. Yeah, but maybe he doesn't realize what he's doing is scamming people. He probably really believes he's selling a good product. That makes sense. His pure innocence is probably just the thing old folks like to see in a salesman. Maybe he'll give me a cut of his profits next time I see him. Ow!
Looks like I'll have to teach you a lesson later after all. So, what do we do, Tobimaru? Do we wait it out and gather more information? If he's really involved, he could be arrested for fraud. Though he is still a minor at least.
If he's just an employee, he probably won't get any kind of real sentence. I guess it all depends on what his contract said when they hired him.
Yeah, that's true. He might already be a member of their group by now. Aoko looked a lot more cool-headed now. Tobimaru has been serving with her on the student council for over a year. He knew exactly what she was thinking at a time like this.
If you signed a contract, it's going to be hard to get him out of it. Even if he wants to leave, it's legally binding. How far do you want to go with this?
We have to at least stop their business. If they want us to say they're free to practice their beliefs, they'll have to go worship elsewhere.
I can tell by the look on your face you weren't messing around. What do we do about Sojiro then? Get him to quit first?
Of course, this isn't only his problem anymore. The fact that they're trying to recruit our students makes it our problem too. We have to take them down regardless of Shizuki's involvement.
Fine, but you do know they won't go down without a fight. They're technically a legal business, just like predatory loan services. The police can only give them a warning, and if we disrupt their business, they'll try to sue us for damages. We shouldn't rush into this.
I know. First we need to find out more about the company, who their president is, and how many employees they have. We also need to look for possible victims, then we can... Aoko suddenly stopped talking in the middle of her detailed plans.
What's wrong? Ah.
Tobimaru noticed right away what Aoko had spotted. Aoko was looking at the crowd on the street. A familiar young man wearing a coat was walking through the lively second street. He walked confidently up to the office building and disappeared inside. He hadn't seemed to notice the worried trio watching from the shadows. The young man, clearly Sojiro Shizuki, had just started his shift, still oblivious to the severity of the situation he was in. That little... Aoko was shaking with rage.
Calm down. I know how you feel, but he doesn't realize what he's doing.
I just can't stand this! Aoko raised her head up in a fury and clenched her fists. She was no longer her usual calm and collected self. This was the student council president who ruled with an iron fist, fueled by her own righteous indignation. Tobimaru, call up Mino and tell him we need 20 of the most intimidating guys from his team here immediately. Tell him to gear up because we might have a fight on our hands. Aoko darted out into the main street as she barked her orders. She looked like an esteemed general charging into a battle against an enemy squadron.
Mino, you mean the captain of the cheer squad? Also, 20 guys. What the hell are you planning on doing?
What do you think? We're gonna crack some skulls. We won't get anywhere trying to make this into a legal battle. Any organization that's grooming students into committing crimes on their behalf will only answer to physical force. I mean, what is this light of truth garbage on their sign? They can't just come up into our town and sell their dingy down quilts to our unsuspecting citizens.
Okay, just calm down. What happened to our peaceful plan just a minute ago? Only the police are allowed to use violence against criminals. Come back here.
Hey! That for? We're doing this precisely because you said the police can't do much. If you have a problem with that, then come up with a better plan.
I don't necessarily have a problem with it. I'm just telling you to calm down for a minute. I haven't had time to think of an alternative plan even if I wanted to. What were you thinking of earlier? You said something about going through the legal system.
You know what I was getting at. While we investigate the company, we should also help victims of the scam come together. The reason why this company is targeting the elderly is likely because they're out of touch with the times. If we can help them understand the issue, they'll be able to work together.
That sounds great. The victims will be able to do more if they work together as a group, rather than as individuals. Then what? If we assume there's no kind of contract involved, we just try and get their money back?
Yeah, but it's probably going to be impossible. They almost definitely will have a contract. It's annoying, but if they sign something, we can't overturn that. All we can do now is try to stop the damages from getting worse. Cancel loans, cancel memberships, and...
And?
Get as much money back as we can. There should be a cooling off period for the down quilts, so some might be able to get a refund.
That sounds like a plan. Let's go with that. There's no need for you to become the bad guy here. Let's try to solve this peacefully and within the law.
That's true, but it's easy for you to say since you weren't the one of the victims. For those that were scammed, that money is lost forever.
Yeah, but it's not your job to worry about that. We should get in touch with Kumari. She was raised in the shopping district and should know the best way to go about things.
Hojika? I hate to get her involved in this, but we don't have much of a choice. Okay. I'll get in touch with her. I still need you to call up Mino.
Huh? Why do we still need the cheer squad with this plan?
They're good for more than just intimidation. They can help support the victims when we find them. I know Mino's team looks scary, but they're all good at heart, right? Once we've made sure that there's a cooling off period for those contracts, they can take care of the paperwork for them.
It's not a bad idea. I bet those idiots won't know what to do when 20 big strong guys come in demanding refunds.
Aoko and Tobimaru both nodded in agreement. Kinomi had been completely left to the wayside in this whole discussion.
Hey, so what's a cooling off period? I never heard of it.
It's a clause that allows you to return an item you purchased and get a refund for the full amount paid at the time of purchase. It was officially put into practice in Japan about 10 years ago. You really haven't heard of it?
No, never. How's that any different from a normal return?
Well, it's the same, but it's just legally protected. If the Light of Truth wants to use the law to their advantage, then we can do the same. The elderly victims probably won't know a thing about it either, so that's why we're going to fight for them. In reality, only a very narrow range of products were applicable for the satisfaction period law, and it was currently unclear if those handled by the Light of Truth fell under that umbrella. It was not applicable under this law. Aoko would have to think of another plan. However, not 30 minutes later, that worry would vanish when they got the chance to examine the actual quilt sold by the Light of Truth. Once Aoko has an established plan, she will not waver from it. They had made a cafe with a view of the office building, the command center. And after they got together, others from the student council for backup, their one-day blitz tactic plan began. I want this over with quickly. You two, take care of all the communications. Let's get this done today. Nobimaru sighed at the thought of trying to complete everything in a day's time. Hinome, on the other hand, wondered why he had been dragged in to help. Although Tobimaru had gotten Aoko to abandon the idea of a physical fight, Aoko knew that the contract plan would be difficult to pull off and continued to research other options. There are many conditions that need to be met for this plan to actually work. The major issue was the amount of time elapsed from the time of purchase. For consumable goods, their time limit for legal return was 8 days. If there were 30 or so victims, this would probably only be applicable to 1 or 2 of them. If that was the case, they need to look for some other consumer protection besides the satisfaction clause. Wait, really? If items of low value are sold at an unfair price, the contract may be invalidated as profiteering. However, this must be founded in public order and morality. Doesn't this generally always favor the seller? The courts can't punish solely on basis of suspicion. We'd be at a disadvantage if it came to an extended argument. It was a difficult situation. They wouldn't be able to stand up to an experienced group of scam artists with their limited knowledge of the law. They need to fight fire with fire, or in this case, a scam with a scam.
So basically, we scammed them out of the same amount of money they scammed out of the victims.
To do that, they need more intel. Aoko was studying the materials they collected for something they could use. You're waiting, everyone. I've got the addresses of 10 additional candidates and one of the actual quilts sold. Thank you. You really get things done fast when you put your mind to it.
I guess I'll take over for narration now that she's here. Aoko took the list of victims from the student council secretary, Kojika Kumari, and immediately contacted Tobimaru on his pager. Although pagers could only receive short messages like, "call me," they were a powerful means of communication in an age where people relied on public telephones. Have you ever even seen a pager, Misaki?
Yeah.
You have?
No, actually no.
When I was young, my dad had one, but... Tobimaru called the cafe to give Aoko an update and hear about the list of newly discovered victims.
Okay, they still use pagers actually inside of some dramas. At least doctor dramas. You've got all the victims together. Let Aoyama handle the proceedings. If you could get some business cards made up to throw them off, that'd be helpful too. Remember that fake organization we came up with for the school festival? Use that and put the phone number on the cards. We could have Mr. Yamashiro field the calls.
The victims' advocacy group was currently just over 10 members. The group's aim was to help the victims of the scam get their money back and remove themselves from the light of truth. Some of the victims did not even realize they'd been scammed. so with some explanation, about 10 more members were added. It helped that it was polite, young, well-dressed students who were giving them this information. The elderly generally seemed more accepting of anyone who was around the age of their grandchildren.
We've done a good job getting this far. We've got our goal of 20 people in no time. He laid out all the conditions clearly, which made it easy for us. We looked for anyone over the age of 60 who lived alone and was not a member of their local neighborhood association. We just did exactly what the salespeople from the Light of Truth did. Our work is just getting started, though. It's still going to be all we can do to make a complaint against their... Aozaki? What's with that weird smile all of a sudden?
Aoko looked up after being called out by her friend.
Oh, I just found something very interesting is all. We may be fighting an uphill battle, but this might change the tides in our favor. Look here at this tag.
Aoko showed her the product label sewn on the down quilt. There on the tag was what looked like the Japanese Industrial Standards logo. The Japanese Industrial Standards helped maintain the quality of industrial products in Japan. Products with this mark were required to be produced in accordance with the Industrial Standardization Law.
Huh? JLS? Yep, this actually makes the contracts work in our favor. I thought we were dealing with professionals, but it turns out they're actually a group of amateurs. If we do this right, we could get all the money back to the victims. It's going to feel so good to put these scammers in their place.
Aoko took a seat, still grinning from ear to ear. She didn't ring Tobimaru's pager. Instead, she dialed a different number on the red phone while humming to herself. Aoko heard the familiar ringing tone through the receiver.
Aozaki, I thought you were calling Tsukiji. You need to tell him about our change of plans. I will after this. Right now, I have to figure out who to put in charge of the negotiations. I don't think Tobimaru or myself could do such an important role of justice. Even if we have the advantage for now, we still need an evenly matched battle. Completely turn the tables on us in the discussion, so we need someone ruthless to represent us. I thought that was going to be you. No. For this, we need an adult with some kind of social standing. Don't worry. I actually know the perfect person for this job. Let's just say you need a scammer to fight a scammer. I know someone whose sole job is to win arguments against people in town. I doubt she has anything going on today, so I thought we might put her to work. Anyone who goes up against her is guaranteed to have a mental breakdown in an hour, no matter what kind of scam they're running.
Aoko kept the phone receiver at her ear as she delivered these cutting remarks. The ringing tone had long since gone silent.
Hello? I don't want to assume anything, but were you talking about me this whole time, Aoko?
An eloquent woman's voice could be heard from the phone's earpiece. Aoko innocently said her greeting and smiled like a hunter who had just gotten their prey to take the bait.
Oh, I've always thought this about you. But you really don't have enough respect for your elders, Aoko.
Huh? Tobimaru and Kinomi had returned from their tasks and stood there wide-eyed. The person Aoko had invited to the cafe looked so out of place that it was a shock to everyone.
Thank you so much for coming, Yuika. I pretty much told you all the details over the phone, but is there anything else you want me to go over? That's okay. I received a full report about the Light of Truth from Mitsuka. I do not require any lectures from you on that matter. Well, aren't we in a mood? That's perfect though. Take that attitude to them. When you're in the zone, your glare alone is enough to make someone faint.
Whoa, seriously? Isn't this lady a nun at Aida Church? I actually really look up to her. Oh crap, no, it's not the time. Hi. My name's Hosuke Kinomi. Azaki and I aren't really friends. Kinomi was clearly trying to earn points by showing that he also was not that friendly with Aoko. Sister Yuika gave an angelic smile back.
Why, hello there. I am indeed a sister at the Ida Church. My name is Yuika Suse. It's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Hosuke.
Ah, this is crazy. She's really a nun. I can't believe you had something this amazing up your sleeve the whole time, Aoko. Wait, but what are you gonna have her do? I mean, I'm fine with just having her around in general. I think we can all imagine. It's a pleasure to meet you, Sister Yuika. My name is Tobimaru Tsukiji, Student Council Vice President. Tobimaru didn't look so well. Perhaps he figured out what this course of events was heading. The JLS label was indeed illegal. This discovery made Aoko realize how they could get the victims' money back and run the Light of Truth out of town completely. Sister Yuika was her solution. I thought the plan was to let the evidence do the talking, and if they don't want to be sued, get them to settle out of court. They'd pay back the money and get out of town. But this is something else. She doesn't want to just kick them out of town. She wants to fleece them for all they've got. Huh? How could she even do that? I mean, I know she's beautiful, but does a nun really have that kind of power?
It's not because she's a nun. That's just the kind of pull Yuika has around her. Anyway, here's the signatures of everyone in the advocacy group. The cheer team is also helping. Do you want to take some of them? If things get too heated, it's going to be a pain to resolve later. Let's just bring 5 to keep the peace. You're also welcome to accompany me if you'd like, Aoko.
Huh? Wait, is Yuika going to talk to them? I thought you were going to do that, Prez.
No, it's fine. She may not look like it, but she's actually a specialist in these kinds of situations. Isn't that right, Yuika? As much as you, but yes, you could say that. Since that office is indeed operating an illegal business, I'm willing to help. We will both benefit after all. Sins must not go unpunished. They must feel the pain they inflicted upon the good people of this town. You certainly live up to your reputation, sister. I'm sure you'll win. You've been crushing the competition for a long time now. Yes, well... there's simply no need for 2 schools of thought in a single place.
Though the two continue to antagonize each other, they entered the office building, fighting for the same team. The 5 burly members of the cheer team filled in behind them. They left behind a glum Tobimaru and a completely clueless Kinomi. I really don't know what's going on, but what is Aozaki trying to get that poor woman to do for her? Oh, do you not even want to know what kind of cruelty Aozaki is capable of inflicting upon her enemies? Once they get the company to terminate everyone's contracts based on illegal sales, the 2 will take legal action against them. That's where Sister Yuika comes in. She's far more qualified than Aozaki, who's just a student. I've heard some less than savory rumors about that church, too. This company will be lucky if losing all their funds is the worst that happens. For this, you want to take over?
After taking a few deep breaths, Tobimaru also headed towards the office building.
You're going in there too? Isn't it a little scary? I'm not going. Are you crazy? I just have some business to attend to. You need to get back to school. I'll compensate you for all this later. Don't worry. Man, you know school's done by now, right? It's almost night. Hey, it was fun though. Well, you're right. Half the day's gone.
Tobimaru waved goodbye and disappeared into the office building.
Wait, what?
Kinomi thought it was strange since Tobimaru had just said he wasn't going in there. However, he left as well after hearing a noise that sounded like glass breaking on the 3rd floor of the office building. A wise man never counts court's danger, as they say.
Okay, the discussion ended without any major issues. The inside of the office was mostly untouched. Only the center line of the desks had been pulverized by Sister Yuika. Things had been resolved peacefully without any bloodshed. The office had been conquered in about an hour, and Aoko was now surveying it. A large desk had gone right through the window, flung through the air with a single swing of Sister Yuika's hand. The sales staff were shaking in the corner like they'd just seen the devil incarnate. Sister Yuika brought in the 5 members of the cheer team to seize the office permits and other important documents.
Huh?
Unfortunately, the one thing Aoko was looking for was nowhere to be found. She went to ask the sales staff, still quivering in the corner of the room.
About 3 hours ago, did you see a harmless-looking teenage boy come in here? I know he hasn't left the building, so he must still be in here somewhere.
Everyone shook their heads no. Nobody had seen a student who fit that description in the office. Aoko was looking even more confused at this point.
Well...
She was still happy she'd done a good deed in here today. Tobimaru entered... Oh wait, actually, you take over for here. This is a guy scene.
Tobimaru entered the office building and headed straight down the hallway. He glanced at the stairs in front of him as he walked by, passing several tenants and heading towards the emergency exit in the back of the building. Tobimaru knew the geography of the second street well. If his memory served correctly, there were some old one-story houses behind the buildings that have been around forever. They were old tin-roofed rental houses that stood against the tide of time. Though overshadowed by the recent trend of 2-story apartments, they were still there, alive and kicking. At the back of the office building, there was a river for processing wastewater. Beyond the river and the fence, there were many one-story houses. Next to the building, there was a bridge that crossed over to the other side. It was a shortcut only neighborhood locals would know about.
This is a pretty intense shortcut. Maps can't help you here, that's for sure.
As Tobimaru walked towards the bridge, he saw a familiar face exit one of the old tin-roof houses. A young man was wearing a coat and without a doubt Sojiro Shizuki.
See you tomorrow.
Sojiro crosses the bridge while the old woman who resided there saw him off.
Huh? Is that you, Tobimaru? Yo, fancy meeting you here, Slick.
The two exchanged glances as they crossed paths on the bridge. Sojiro looked fairly spent. That was all Tobimaru needed to see. Sojiro's new job was a lot harder than working for any scam artists. They both stopped to talk on the footbridge.
You have relatives around here or something? No, I was just keeping the old woman who lives there company. Someone told me about it, and it sounded like something I could do.
For some reason, Sojiro readily revealed what he had refused to tell Aoko.
Is it okay to be talking about it? Sounds like something they might want to be kept secret. Oh no, it's fine. It's not really anything I need to keep quiet about. I just thought maybe I shouldn't before. You saw me coming out of there, and I actually have been wanting to tell someone about it. I didn't want to complain, but since you asked...
Leaning on the rail of the footbridge, Tobimaru urged him to go on. It turned out that Sojiro's story was nothing out of the ordinary. His new part-time job was to be a home helper in that old one-story house. This resident was a widow who had been left alone after her son moved off to the city.
At first, I was just helping around the house.
He spoke with a troubled, slightly regretful smile. Maybe he was ashamed of something he'd done? There was a tinge of darkness behind that wry, tormented smile on his face. Tobimaru found himself surprised at his own thoughts and slapped himself lightly on the cheek. This was his way of punishing himself. He wasn't sure why his imagination was running so wild now.
You seem oddly glum, though. Oh, I get it. You have a problem with the son who left the mom like that, even though she clearly needs help around the house, huh? I wonder. It is an odd story, I think. But I don't really mean to blame him. I mean, that's...
Sojiro stopped himself mid-sentence. He didn't think the son hated his mother so much as he did the town. He had probably just found somewhere better to live and moved away. Sojiro swallowed those bitter words.
At first, I took the full amount as payment, but I thought 100,000 yen was too much for a job that'll only last a month.
He trailed off, muttering that he really didn't need that much money. The old woman had thanked him for his honesty. That was part of Sojiro's appeal, most likely. In a matter of days, the old woman put all her trust into Sojiro and treated him like her own grandson.
I was honestly happy about that. The problem is...
She always saw him off with a smile and asked him to return tomorrow. Every time he left, she gave him a stack of cash in the hope that he wouldn't forget her.
Whoa, really? That's what you're getting all that money for? Yeah, she said she wants to be her. She wants me to be her grandson. She said that she says she can trust me, so she wants me to act like I'm her grandson. Whoa, that's crazy. It's hard to believe, but I guess a grandson from hire isn't too much different from a house helper. No, it's different. She said she doesn't pay helpers because she can't trust them. She says she can only trust money.
She seemed to have some quirks about her, probably because she'd been living alone for so long. By this point, she lost all faith in the goodwill of humankind. To her, the bonds of a family were nothing but fantasy. After being cast aside by her own family for so many years, the only thing that remained faithful to her was the money she'd saved. Over time, this led to her developing a strange complex. For her, the money she'd scrimped and saved, the last thing she could rely on, was the only way she could conceive of keeping someone in her life.
That's crazy. She's just hiring help. It's not like she can just buy a grandson. I think she knows that more than anyone. Even if she knows it isn't real, that's just how hard it is for her to trust anyone. What she wants most in this world is for her grandchildren to visit her. And since that's not happening, she turned to the one thing she could trust to make that a reality.
She wasn't buying him, though. She just trusted Sojiro from the bottom of her heart and was thanking him the only way she knew how. She didn't realize how that looked from other people's perspectives.
Well, it looks like you've gotten yourself into a real sticky situation again. But hey, try not to worry about it too much. I mean, it's a nice story. She found something in her life that's even more important than money. That's something to be proud of. Really? I hope so.
It was obvious from Sojiro's expression that this still weighed heavily on him.
Come on, cheer up. Knowing you, I bet you haven't spent any of the money she's given you. Are you saving it all up to give back to her when she inevitably runs out? Is that why you didn't tell Aozaki? Huh? How'd you know? It was just a guess, but I know how you are.
Tabimaro decided it was best not to tell Sojiro about all the trouble they went through for him today. He knew Aoko would only make him regret it later if he did.
So let me tell you the worst thing about all this. Wait, no. The truth is, the old lady doesn't have any grandchildren. Huh?
After a few moments of surprise, Tobimaru let out a sigh. He understood. Being widowed with a son who's moved into the city and grandchildren who never visit. That was a normal, full and rich life. Sometimes, however, a person's dreams were all that kept them going. The bottom is limitless. For every tragic life, there's another even more tragic than that.
You know, sometimes this town catches me off guard. Everyone looks so happy and blessed, but if you look hard enough, you start to see that it's not always the case. It's like the entire town is fooling me.
Tobimaru leaned over the railing and looked down at the bustling town below. In the end, Sojiro's worries stemmed from his feeling lost in this environment. The woman who walked through life alone into old age. Tobimaru's struggle with being antagonized by his entire family. Those are both personal matters. Sojiro's problems stem from the nebulous entity of the town itself. For every bit of progress made through modernization, there were also people left in growing misfortune. It didn't matter whether they were unequal in wealth or compassion, it was all the same. The larger town grows, the harder it becomes for the weak to thrive. For a young man who spent his life in the countryside where everyone helped each other, this is hard to understand.
Sojiro, do you really like it in this town? I honestly don't know yet. What about you? Similar. Sometimes I like it, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I feel like it doesn't matter either way. Then again, I'm kind of the total opposite of you. In town, I can ignore my problems if I want. It's better than a place like this, anyway. There's something to this bustle and chaos that you can't discount, even if it does feel hollow at times. It's better than here? Not exactly. I just mean that I'd have more options. I'm sure you've thought this about your part-time jobs. But a town like this never leaves any gaps. Wherever there's an opening, the opening is going to be filled. The city is a really well-constructed community when you think about it. Sometimes you never know the day before. Someone you never knew the day before might be a neighbor you need to call on the very next day. A street corner that had nothing on it yesterday might have a new building on it today. Every single day in the city is like living through a major surgery in process. It's seriously impressive that it works as well as it does. Something always makes me think that. It's not just living on my own. I'm not just living on my own. I'm able to survive thanks to the accomplishments of people I'll never know about. It's all a bunch of give and take. The fact that it works at all is a feat in and of itself.
Just as the mountains are alive, so is the city. Tobimaru didn't seem to like the way that living creature had manifested itself. But even still...
I see. You really respect it, huh? I mean, it's a little embarrassing, but yeah.
As someone who was born and raised in the city, Tobimaru was thankful that complete strangers were able to help each other out.
Honestly, you're just asking for too much. Nobody likes when they live where they live in the beginning. You can't choose where you were born, after all. You have to learn to like wherever it is you decide to live, not the other way around. Gah.
Tobimaru gave Sojiro's back a hard slap. It made Sojiro straighten up his posture and snap him out of his slump a bit.
Okay, but what if you decide to live somewhere and you just can't like it no matter how hard you try? If you really don't like it, you can just move somewhere else. Don't be scared to run away from a bad place. You're meant to wander a bit in life.
Sojiro was so impressed with Tobimaru's words, he couldn't speak. They gave him a new perspective. It wasn't just the words, don't be scared to run away from the bad place. What had really left a strong impression was Tobimaru's confidence. Although he had been born in this town, he spoke freely of abandoning it.
I never thought I'd hear you talk about running away. There's nothing wrong with running away if you have somewhere to run to. That's not to say you shouldn't hold on to the words like victory and success, or fortune and fame. I just think it's easy to feel stifled if you're always trying to win. You don't have the willpower of someone like Aozaki, who could just power through things. I like to keep life light. You think life is better when it's light? I don't really mean lightweight or secure or anything like that. I just want more adventure, or, you know.
Tobimaru furrowed his brow at his inability to find the proper words. What he wanted was simple.
Look, I just want to live a life that I can laugh about.
That was how he saw life. Tobimaru tried his best to put into his words his thoughts, hoping his friend would find them useful.
Like a comedian?
Tobimaru's shoulders slumped in disappointment. But even so...
Actually, yeah, sure.
The more he thought about it, the more he realized that Sojiro wasn't really wrong. There was no end to human desire. The perfect life was an unattainable dream. The only way to really win was to be able to say with your dying breath that you had truly enjoyed living.
Man, I wonder if this is Aozaki's influence. She's the type to take a gamble on anything. I bet she loves Bunny and Clyde.
Tobimaru tiredly scratched his head. He never would have said something like this last year, considering how pessimistic he had been then.
Anyway, there's no end to it if you worry about everyone else's business. Look, the sun's already going down. We've been out here forever. Sorry to keep you. Do you have something else you need to be doing? Nah, maybe I'll just be good and head home. You should get home before it gets totally dark, too. If they ask you what you were doing, just be honest. It's not as bad as you think it sounds.
Sojiro frowned and fell silent. He still hadn't come to terms with his arrangement with that old woman yet. If he hadn't gone there in the first place, she might have not felt like anything was missing from her life. That feeling of regret was exactly why he wanted to talk to someone.
I bet you think you've done something cruel to her, don't you? Like you showed her something that she could never have, am I right?
Sojiro was stunned into silence. Tobimaru knew exactly what Sojiro regretted.
You shouldn't think that you have that much power over someone, Sojiro. Listen, if she thinks she messed up her life, then you should do whatever you can to help her. She's stinking rich, right? And get her to help people with it. There's so many problems in this world that she can fix with her money. If you can get her to be proud of herself, then you'll have done a good job. It would make me happy, at least. But that still doesn't get rid of her suffering. Don't worry about problems you can't solve. Focus on the problems you can help with. You can convince her to let you give that money back so she can use it to help others and herself. Then she's won. That will give more meaning to her life than a fake grandson ever could. But if she says she's done enough, she wants you to have the rest of her money. That means you've won. She'd prefer to think of you as her grandson. If that's the case, then there's no shame in taking that money from her. I see now.
Sojiro clapped his hands together. He was finally able to accept these conditions as fair.
Hey, thanks for the talk, Tobimaru.
His smile was no longer bitter. He would do whatever he could to help that old woman choose to assist others in need. Tobimaru thought that such unwavering confidence was a sign of true freedom.
Don't worry about it. I needed it just as much as you. See you after the break.
Good Boy wasn't the friendliest, but Sojiro didn't mind. He ran home with a big smile on his face. Tobimaru's smile was a bit less carefree than he left the footbridge. The time was 4:30 in the evening. Night would soon fall over the midwinter landscape.
I'm home. Looks like it's going to be a cold one tonight again. Aoko and Alice were both in the drawing room when he returned. Neither of them had eaten dinner yet. Aoko looked displeased. Alice sat uncomfortably on the sofa. Huh? Were you two waiting for me to get home? Alice quietly affirmed his assumption. Aoko vehemently denied it. Aozaki, I might just be imagining things, but you seem even more worked up than you were last night. Sojiro had gotten slightly better after reading the room, but he still had difficulty choosing the right words.
I'll show you worked up.
It was what she wanted to say, but she stopped herself. She wasn't actually all that angry with Sojiro, but...
Wait, what are you worked up about, Aoko? I'm not worked up about anything. If anybody's worked up about something, it's Sojiro.
Alice's additional remark seemed to have been the tipping point. Sojiro thought this showed she was indeed worked up about something. You think so? I thought he seemed more... Oh, wait.
You think so? I thought he seemed more normal than usual tonight.
Sojiro felt like this was pretty offensive too, but he let it slide.
Fine, if that's how you want to play it. I was going to wait for you to say something, but just go ahead and ask. Sojiro, have you ever heard of an organization called Light of Truth?
No, not before now.
I didn't think so. Your name wasn't in their records anywhere. How could we have messed that up so badly? It wasn't all for naught, but now I've set more bad rumors afloat.
Aoko let out an exaggerated sigh and flopped down onto the sofa. Seeing Aoko in this weakened state was an opportunity. The Blue Robin flew jauntily down from the sunroom.
Ha ha! I saw it me own mince pies. This whole neighborhood is like, oh, that Aozaki girl has gone and done it again. She took out a whole business with that snap of her fingers. You're like an urban legend at this point.
Robin continued to chatter praise for Aoko's deeds of valor.
Oh.
Aoko knocked it away with a flick of her finger and picked herself up off the sofa.
I see. I see you don't have an envelope of money today. Is your part-time job finished?
No, it's still going. I'm actually just holding that money. I made a separate bank account for it and deposited it this morning.
You're holding it?
Yep, I'll be giving it all back eventually. Sojiro took off his coat and began talking about his job as a home helper. He kept it simple, explaining how things began and the conclusion he'd come to with Tobimaro earlier. Aoko seemed stunned by the outlandish circumstances, but in the end...
Okay, I should have known. I don't know if I'm relieved or disappointed. You really are incapable of doing anything wrong, aren't you?
She was back to her usual offensive self. However, there was another girl in the room who had at this point gone pale.
Wait, so you're saying that wasn't your money?
That's right, I'm just holding it for someone else.
Alice? The expression on your face right now is something else. Are you okay? No, I'm fine. I just ordered takeout. Huh?
Alice handed out menus for the local soba noodle shop and the cafe. The blood drained from Aoko's face as she took everything in. Alice quietly passed her a small note. On it was a hastily written order that was more than enough food for the three of them.
Wait, you've already ordered? Well, yeah. I thought it was about time someone treated us.
Alice's accusing gaze fell on Sojiro. Huh? Me? Why?
Because you got everyone's hopes up. Alice was looking forward to you treating us to dinner, you know.
Sojiro clapped his hands together for a second time today. He remembered that Alice had said that yesterday.
Yes, and you agreed.
Alice was eager to emphasize that this was not her fault. Yeah, but...
Alice may have messed up, but it's your fault. This is why you shouldn't walk around with so much money. I hope you've learned your lesson. You two are just going to have to split the bill.
No way, I can't. That money's in the bank, and I only have 500 yen on me.
He's right. Even if we pull our money together, we won't have enough. Can we cancel the order?
An air of despair fell upon the Kuonji estate. Aoko sighed as if none of this involved her. She hated to coddle them, but perhaps this was her fate.
I should have known this would happen. It's fine, I'll pay for it. I got some unexpected income today, so I might as well use it.
Ako's sudden proposal made both Sojiro and Alice perk up. Wait, you're going to treat us, Aozaki?
I can't believe my ears. Are you sure, Aoko? Well, you've already called it in the order. We can't cancel it now. If you called them earlier, they're probably already on their way up the hill. We got this money because of Sojiro anyway. It's a thank you present from the Victims Advocacy Group. It feels weird taking it from them, and this way it goes back into the shopping district anyway, so don't worry about it. I do think it's a bit of a waste though, if I'm being honest.
Her roommates began celebrating. Aoko sank back onto the sofa upon seeing the happiness her gesture brought.
Oh well, easy come, easy go. All that extra money, gone just like that.
And thus, the curtain closed on the little incident involving a lot of cash. The blue robin flew down from the table again to the table again.
You? That would knock you right out of your Goldilocks, eh?
Robin chirped and mimicked puffing on a cigarette.
Anyway, all of that aside, let's always remember this as the Dosh affair, so that we never forget the gravel and grit Miss Aoko dragged herself through.
That would be shit for the rhyming slang. Blue Robin continued to laugh at that day's hero. Aoko flicked the bird away just as someone knocked at the door. Alice had ordered her favorite omelet dish and a set of cakes from the cafe.
Might as well enjoy.
Aoko was quite quietly satisfied with the spoils of an honest day's work. Well, that was a fun little story.
What a big misunderstanding.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, and then we got this weird little book over here.
Oh, it's so cute.
Yeah. What's a familiar?
The wonderful world of...
Ploys.
Yeah, so this is the closest thing this game has to a Tiger Dojo.
Like humans who know no think of magic or incantations. High school firsties in booted sweaters trying to make it big, only to be one-upped by a superior heroine. Good evening. It's time for my new series of lectures where I tell you about the most esoteric of topics in the most esoteric of ways. I'm your host, the Great 3+1, Robin the Crook. I've invited my angel mom here tonight to act as your teacher. I mean, we aren't here in the room after all. She wouldn't come down to the studio, so I decided to bring the camera up to her. I'm thinking outside the cage, as they say. If the guests don't turn up of her own volition, why not shoot the show in her lovely chambers?
Can we just get started already? I want to finish this and get out of here as soon as possible.
You're embarrassing me. You put me in my right 2 and 8.
Why?
Oh well, I took it as I want to finish this nonsense so I can have some quality private time with you instead. Human language sure is a deep blue tit. Honestly, I barely have any grasp of what anyone is ever trying to say.
Quite. I actually agree with you for once.
Ah, I never knew you put so much trust in me, Gab. I'm not sure where I can bear the pieces 08. Won't that have just make me quake?
The entire shelf. The first shelf of the books.
Robin?
Ah, right. So in this lesson, I'll be discussing the most basic of basics when it comes to familiars. I promise this will be bright and breezy for you newbies of Majory. That's why it's the wonderful world of ploys after all. So tell us, Miss Alice, what exactly are familiars? Explain it for someone who's never seen or heard of such a thing.
Okay. So familiars are sort of like robots that a mage controls. Magecraft has always been a practice that requires mages to hole up inside their workshops for extended periods of study. We need an eternity we need an entity we can trust to collect materials, keep watch on the outside world, and eliminate outside threats for us.
They're basically like a pawn. How are they different from a disciple?
They are different in many ways. A master passes down wisdom to a disciple in the hopes that one day the disciple will succeed them. It is, in fact, a disciple's duty to surpass their master, and a master would not accept a disciple if they did not feel was capable of achieving that. Conversely, familiars are only capable in the abilities that they are imbued with at the time of their creation. You can't pass on any skills or wisdom to an entity that never grows.
I see. That's why I never seem to learn anything new no matter how many donkey's ears pass. Put another way, I've been perfect since birth.
Yes, perfectly useless. Many familiars are created by using a small animal as a base. That's because many familiars require magical energy from their mage owner to operate. The larger the familiar, the more magical energy is required. Small animals are convenient because they don't require much magical energy to create. And once they're made, they can subsist on their own.
Subsist? I've never hunted for anything in my life. I don't need protein or fiber, nothing like that.
Right. Ploys are different from other living creatures. Anyway, my point is, familiars are like servants or pets to mages.
Cute.
It's common to use animals like cats, birds, or mice as familiars.
Miss Alice, what about this dangerous-looking character here? What category would they be in?
This is an automaton. Designed specifically for use in combat, it's really more like a sentinel than a familiar, to be honest. Automata are a special case, entirely separate from the concept of a familiar. Intelligent familiars who can get along with humans like yourself are also a special case. That said, they're a waste of energy, just too expensive to make. It'll be faster for a mage to do most of the tasks on their own, and she can make a familiar with cheaper materials.
In a case of ends not really justifying the means, eh? So from what you're saying, seems familiars are always less powerful than their mage. Always live in the shadows of their wings, eh? What a bunch of useless freeloaders.
How very short-sighted of you as usual, Robin. Sometimes I can't believe you're one of my familiars.
Miss Alice, why must your words excite your expression be a fright?
Even if they have only 1/10 the power of their mage, it's actually quite easy to create a familiar that is stronger than their master. Maybe next time I'll try embedding a derringer in your stomach or something. You won't be able to laugh or cry or fly anymore, but you can at least scare the stuffing out of anyone that crosses us, that's for sure.
Ooh, Robin the firecracker. That's so chicken and rice. Looks like I'll be a huge hit this Christmas.
I'm talking about a cap gun, just so you're aware. Maybe that's a better idea, though. One pop, and you're out of my hair forever.
Hey, come on. Now you're just being mean. Anyway, I think you pretty much covered the basics. A familiar is like a robot that protects its mage creator, and its abilities are entirely up to the mage that makes it. So wait. I know you're a top-class mage, Alice. But what would happen to someone like Aoko? Happen if someone like Aoko made a familiar? Would it just blow itself up immediately or something?
What a ridiculous hypothesis. Aoko doesn't even have the capabilities to begin creating a familiar yet. She can only destroy things, remember? If she gave up her lone skill to familiar, she would lose her entire reason to even exist.
Ha ha ha. Never want to mince your words, Angel Mom.
Aoko has no reason to use a familiar for combat. Conversely, I can't fight at all, so...
Makes 18 pence. Aoko is strong all by herself. You surround yourself with strong allies.
Right. If you were to compare it to chess, Aoko would be a strong piece that could stand on its own, like the queen.
Come on, translators. We know what shogi is. You don't have to call it chess.
I, on the other hand, utilize many pieces, but I myself only have the strength of a pawn.
Ah, yes, I see. I forgot just how weak and out of shape you are. You can only barely dog paddle to swim, can't do a single push-up, and can't ride a bicycle. And spend gym class sitting around doing mostly nothing. But that's fine. You're right, Robin Hood. But if we get down to brass tacks, it's 'cause I'm always telling you, my angel mom, you're far too beautiful to exert yourself.
You are incredibly vile, you know that? I'll have you know I can jog short distances.
No.
Amazing how the sponsor of the show is Type Moon. Who would have guessed?
Alright, and now, lesson 2. Let's learn Ploy Kickshaw.
Hello there. Relieved of his daily guard duties, a blue shadow descends upon the garden. When all said and done, this bird has landed with aplomb. Time to get started with another lecture in this special location requested by Miss Alice herself. As you can see, it's nothing special, just an ordinary garden. Now, where could that Alice be?
Does not look like a garden to me. I've been waiting for you, Robin. You do realize you're part of this lecture series too, right?
Okay, so I assume it says Misaki Elementary School or something like that.
Probably.
Or preschool, maybe.
Huh? I can hear you, but I don't see you anywhere. What kind of trick are you trying to pull? Where the heck are you, Alice?
I'm right here. The wonderful world of ploys. The wonderful world of ploys.
Wait.
Well, aren't you going to speak, Robin?
Sorry. On her name tag, it says Usu. Wait, reading that right?
Yeah, it looks like Usu.
Wonder why it says that.
Yeah. I muted Bubble and Squeak. I was just a little startled as all, seeing as how I didn't really notice anything out of the ordinary. It's my Alice Angel, she is. You always scrub up real nice, like a right proper lady. Anyway, quick question. What exactly are you doing here, and why?
I just thought it'd be a good idea to change things up a bit. It goes against my aesthetic to keep using the same props and setting every time. This isn't some kind of dojo. Ouch.
So that's why you moved the lecture here. I see. I got me an earwig. Aoko's a surprisingly big spender. I prefer a dress rather than a smock, though. I think it makes you look like a goddess. Not saying a smock is bad, but it's all about image. How powerful would this butcher's hook be if it were in a painting? That kind of thing. Say you have a painting of a forest and a bird and some children. If the impact of the kids is too strong, you lose focus of the bird.
Oh no, I forgot I was in the middle of making some sweets.
And I'm being ignored. So Miss Alice, what is it that you do all day anyway? Aoko's a student council president, Sojiro's got his work. Do you just mind the old rat and mouse?
I do exactly what you see here. I spend my free time making ploys.
Wow, you're just like a witch in those old fairy tales. I didn't know you made ploys in a cauldron. And what's it smell? Chocolate? Wait a tick. Are ploys made of sweets?
Robin, you're a ploy yourself. Are you telling me you don't know what ploys are made of? Maybe you're just a regular bird after all.
Hey, I don't know anything about the sort. Pretty sure I know how ploys work though, because... Of course, our lovely Alice here will give you a gloss deeper in the housemaid's knee and broader than the skies above, right?
What more can I add to the explanation in the main story? We're done here. Class dismissed.
Really trying to kill this segment, aren't you?
Got any better ideas?
Nah, I at least wanted you to give a brief overview or something. Wouldn't want us to look worse than that dojo.
I suppose I do want to avoid that. Alright, fine. I'll talk a little bit about how ploy kickshells are made. But that's all I'm gonna discuss today. Got it?
Ploy... kiss dolls?
That's just how you pronounce it. The k sound is almost entirely silent. Oh. So it is a kiss shawl.
I guess so.
A kiss shawl is what the Europeans call an insignificant children's toy or trinket.
Oh, I knew that. I've also heard it used in the bed...
Ploys are similar in that here in Japan, we use them to play pretend war and simulate combat. They're a kind of children's educational tool. Ploy is also another word for strategy or battle plan, and in Scotland it has, well, another meaning. That one's not important.
So basically you just threw a bottle of glue at two words to make ploy kiss shawl then? Did you whip up this bit of word salad, Miss Alice?
It's a unique kind of magecraft passed down from me to my mother. To me from my mother. We never registered it with the Mages Association to earn royalties from it or anything cheap like that.
I guess even if you actually did, you'd still be the only one who could actually use it. Bound by that mindset blood, I suppose.
Robin, have you understood a thing I said so far?
Sorry, forgot what I was tripping about. I'm more unsure of the past than I am of the future, is all.
Who exactly were you referring to when you said Mindster?
Goddess Mum, your mother, of course. People called her a pure-blooded witch. Though she always had a bit of a bandwagoner, your mom, always chasing the latest trends, a big fan of old Lewis Carroll. A witch traditionally takes the ploys passed down to them and fine-tunes them to her own needs. Since your mom fancied Carol, so that's how it came about. When she broke the rules and had you, she decided to name you Alice of all things. I still remember the big old grin on her face.
I think I've heard enough. She was always a child at heart, that woman.
Ha ha! You're one to talk. Whenever that boy comes to the gates of Rome, you always perk right up. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree, as they say. Grr.
Let's make the topic of our next lecture, Ploy Kishaw's a tutorial. Robin, make a reservation at the usual place, will you? And when you're finished with that, double boil this chocolate. After that, polish the mirror. And then, fly yourself into a telephone pole and die, maybe?
So the usual routine, gotcha. You're so hard on me today, Miss Alice.
This is how I always am. I'm just too lazy to deal with it. All in the main story, that's all.
Too lazy to deal with what?
Too lazy to waste my precious calories bellaboring a stupid beep like you, for one thing. Do you think you're really worth my time?
Well, pluck me bald. Erin was thinking people gave a tomtit about me. But if that's the case, I wouldn't mind if you gave me a lick sometimes.
I bet you wouldn't. If only it annoy you so much that you'd leave for good.
Oof, the 1-2 knockout rang the bell. So are ploys made of sweets or not? Sweets.
I'm gonna guess yes. What's that, sponsor?
I don't know. Alright, well, that was quite the trip. Let's get back to the main story.
December, the month when even monks are busy at work. It was a culmination of the year. Perhaps due to all the put-off tasks that build up through the seasons, the month always seemed to pass by in the blink of an eye. It was a day like any other in December.
Chapter 9. Scarred. Scar Red.
Though none of them were any wiser to what the others were doing, Aoko, Alice, and Sojiro had spent the day attending to their own affairs. What is this?
Suppressing the urge to murder someone, her terrifying voice boomed across the room. The sunroom was often used to dine when the weather was nice, since it overlooked the courtyard. It was a room decorated with high-quality furniture and upholstery, befitting an historic Western-style mansion. The fusion of Chinese Chippendale aesthetics and traditional English Georgian elegance caused Stephen Aoko, a commoner, to think twice about doing anything unaristocratic on the grounds. Truthfully, she was sickened by the flagrant waste of money, but none of it was paid for out of pocket, so she could have cared less what the purchaser spent their money on. Three unbelievably out-of-place offerings sat atop the lavish sunroom's table, as if enshrined. In stark contrast to the room, they appeared like meals prepared by aliens.
Sojiro, is this your idea of a practical joke?
Aoko's trembling fists clenched and unclenched as she questioned one responsible for today's menu. The clock struck 9 in the evening. The chef in charge nodded dutifully, eager to explain.
That looks like just plain like instant ramen with an egg inside. Like, that's not bad.
It's a new product from my workplace. We said it looks and tastes fake, but honestly, I think it's better than the real thing. Besides, they're only 40 yen each after the company discount. A steal, right? Even with the egg on top, it's still only 60 yen or so. The lackluster chef seemed pleased with himself as he boasted. Aoko wanted to grumble with that the real steal was her appetite.
Well, isn't that nice for you? Now, where's tonight's dinner?
The chef thought for a second or two, then clapped his hands together in revelation. Aozaki, if you eat too much, you'll get fat.
So what you're telling me is, this is dinner?
No complaints, I'm not making anything else. The two stood there, glaring at each other. Aoko gave off an air that said she would rather die than eat this food. While Sojiro was convinced she would capitulate eventually. So confident he even considered chiding her about being so picky. As usual, the two could not see eye to eye.
No way. There's no way I'm eating whatever this is.
Don't be such a spoiled princess. Besides, tonight's dinner only cost 200 yen for the three of us. Sojiro puffed his chest out at his penny-pinching prowess. Alice alternated her gaze between the two quarreling roommates and the strange food in front of her, which she had also never seen before. She remained a mere bystander in all this.
Unbelievable. A 60-yen meal for one person? What year is this? These days, even new beef bowl restaurants cost more than that in ingredients, you dip.
Aozaki, if we ate like you wanted with only 30,000 yen for food each month, I'm pretty sure we would all starve to death before you two could kill me. I mean, sure, the meat Alice cooked yesterday was really something. I was impressed at the difference in quality at 700 yen per ounce. Even though 100% juice from the co-op made me rethink the idea of fresh food. But if we keep eating like we have for the last 3 days, we'll go broke. Sojiro was making perfect sense for once. Fortunately, neither Aoko nor Sojiro noticed the silent stare of disapproval coming from Alice.
We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. And I should note, a meal like yesterday's was a rarity. But maybe I should thank you since your meals have inspired Alice to put some effort into hers for a change.
With Aoko's words, Alice closed her eyes. She might have been trying to quell her anger. You astonish me. You astonish me, How'd you even get by before me?
We made it work, thank you very much. Besides, living life one step from starvation keeps you on your toes.
Her brazen response left him speechless. Though a story for another time, Sojiro remembered a warning from a certain vice president who was complaining about a certain president's incessantly bugging him to take her to lunch at the end of the month. That was neither here nor there.
That was then, and this is now. Were those cooking skills you displayed before, Sojiro? That's the only reason I trusted you with today's meal.
Out of everything, that seemed to be what ate at Aoko the most. The stir-fried yaki udon he had prepared previously had been very well received. It had even melted away Aoko's morning grumpiness with just one bite. However, Sojiro had not seen fit to tell them that it It was one of the only dishes in his limited repertoire. For a bachelor, the ability to cook is as close to a superpower as one can get. 15 years into the future, it would likely become a highly desirable trait. 15 years into the future would be roughly the year 2004 when Fates Day Night takes place, so I'm pretty sure this is referring to Shiro.
Makes sense.
Regardless, that misunderstanding had led Aoko and Alice to overestimate Sojiro's culinary talents. Her ire finally made sense to Sojiro. Alright, fine. We can order in. There's nothing here to cook anyway. But only if you clear up. Aoko basked in her victory. It was then, after seeing Sojiro's face as he went to fetch the delivery menu, Aoko realized her misreading of him. What annoyed Aoko most was the fact that such little effort was put into dinner. But to Sojiro, this dinner had not been about cutting corners, but rather about a meal he had legitimately wanted to try.
I'm on Sojiro's side. That's actually the type of thing I eat at home too.
Aoko ruminated on how it could possibly pass for food for someone raised in the mountains. And then...
Alice, what are you doing?
Aoko noticed Alice standing near the table, holding one of the bowls tightly.
Would you put that down already? I need to give those back to Sojiro so we can eat a proper meal.
Despite Aoko's words, Alice stood at her ground, firmly clutching the bowl. In fact, she seemed to be embracing it.
This one is mine.
I like that how they actually drew art for this. Alice's faint voice drifted across the sunroom. And just like that, the night's menu had been decided by majority rule. Aoko's shoulders sank in disappointment at her lot that evening. Come to think of it, Alice was already peculiar about things she deemed were hers. It was morning, and there were 10 days left in December. While the rest of the city was preparing for Christmas festivities, I guess you take over, Sojiro headed for his part-time job. So Sojiro's scene, so...
Though it looked like it could snow at any minute, the three-line streets were bustling with people. These days are particularly merry. Students on winter break spent their days hanging out with their friends while they counted down the days until the seasonal holidays. A flashy banner for Christmas cakes. Huge advertisements adorning the building fronts. The station plaza bustling with pop-up stalls. From among the crowd in this heaving district, Sojiro stepped into a phone booth. Safe from the winter wind, the inside seemed warm by comparison. The thought that it would actually be nice to have one in the mountains crossed his mind as he inserted a coin into the phone. He dialed a number from memory, his hand moving on its own. After about 5 seconds, the phone began to ring. Another 5 seconds, another ring. 10 seconds had passed. He gazed through the window at the various signs on the surrounding buildings and marveled at the sheer number of people out and about so early. The number he dialed was that of Tobimaru Tsukiji. The Tsukiji name was well known in Misaki as a distinguished land-owning family going back generations. Incidentally, their residence is located in the neighboring town of Yashirogi. The ringtone was finally replaced by the kind voice of an elderly woman. After a polite greeting, she handed over the phone to Sojiro's target.
Morning, Tobimaru. Hey, morning.
He was still half asleep, or so it sounded to Sojiro.
I need to ask you something. Do you have a second? Speak.
His response did not exactly inspire confidence in Sojiro, but he cut right to the chase. The vice president's pause was a long one. He was hard to read from this end of the receiver.
This is what you wake me up for? Listen here, Sojiro. If she's mad at you, take her out somewhere. Try to butter her up. Show her a good time. If that doesn't do the trick, then cut her loose. What do you want me to say?
And with a piece, Tobimaru hung up. It may have been 10 in the morning to Sojiro, but after dealing with what seemed like a 6 o'clock Tobimaru, all he could do was accept his advice. He could say all he liked about the guy's tone, but deep down he knew that his advice was sound. After the phone ordeal, Sojiro finished up his shopping and returned to the mansion just before noon. He was greeted by the sight of Aoko and Alice sitting in silent gloom. Though unsure of the circumstances from the outside looking in, it seemed like the aftermath of an argument. It was similar to the calm after a violent blizzard, accompanied by biting winds and stinging hail. Or a similar atmosphere to the inside of an industrial freezer. It would not have been surprising to look up and see icicles hanging from the ceiling.
There I had it again. He
felt like a zookeeper paying to see the raccoon and penguin at each other's throats. He had seen this at his job at the zoo, where he was a cleaner. Sojiro found himself staring at them with the familiar forlorn look of the zookeeper. Needless to say, the silence meant that they were not fighting at this moment. Dinner served as a respite from the infighting. Sojiro was oblivious to the circumstances surrounding the quarrel. But their day in and day out battles against the mysterious mage was clearly taking a toll.
Not that Alice looks anything but grumpy.
Facing a quiet and contemplative Aoko, Alice was reading an old book, now sat on her lap, as she was accustomed to. The book seemed somehow heavier than the other ones.
I'm home. Looks like I made it in time for truce. He asked them as he took off his coat.
If only. A truce would mean that we were getting somewhere. No, you're way off, Sojiro.
Without quite knowing what Aoko was getting at, Sojiro quizzically tilted his head. He told himself not to think too hard about it, but he could not entirely help it.
Besides, a truce would mean that an agreement has been reached. This is more of a temporary ceasefire.
Seemingly too preoccupied to scold Sojiro, Aoko waved her hand as though shooing off an insect. But Sojiro being Sojiro. Okay, let me rephrase that. So, any progress then? Sojiro was not willing to give up and held his ground.
That's none of your business. What did I tell you? Mage affairs are not for your ears.
Her response was calm but sharp. Surliness was her weapon of choice, and today she seemed determined to swing it at will. Yes, I remember. Did you two eat yet? Sojiro chose to brush off Aoko's attitude. Aoko's weapon was surliness. Sojiro's was blitheness. And he wielded just enough to make Aoko flinch.
What's with you today? You're more upbeat than usual.
Sojiro shrugged his shoulders. I'm not sure. I just have a good feeling about today. By the way, I have a proposal for you. He said as he dug around in the pocket of his now hung-up coat. Aoko gave a puzzled stare while Aoko's ears perked up at how positive he sounded. I got paid today, which means I have money, which means we should go out and do something. He spoke with a warm smile as he removed his wallet from his coat pocket. The other two did not know what to make of it.
Sojiro?
She wanted to take excuse me. She wanted to take exception to his bright mood, but found herself wrestling with the idea of reacting positively to it. After all, he was making a gesture of good faith to try and make things better with what little funds he had. The thought itself was not a bad one. She wanted to accept his earnest goodwill, but there was always the chance that Alice would keep quiet until the slightest thing annoyed her, at which point she would dash all their plans. However, she was not in the mood to walk around town with either of the two, nor was the timing ideal.
Sorry, but I'm kind of busy. I'll take you up on it some other time, though. Just remind me.
Alice seemed to give the same response, though wordlessly. Sojiro was not about to be held back by the sullen mood. Is he doing what? Sitting here in silence? Wasn't it you, Aozaki, that said a change of pace was important when staying up all night? Sometimes you need to take one step back to take two steps forward. Sojiro spoke with unusual confidence as he drew 2 tickets from his wallet and slapped them on the table. At first glance, it looked like advanced tickets to a movie, but not quite. They were tickets to a famous aquarium. To get there, he would take the rapid train and subway to a city several times more modern than Misaki. A city that housed the biggest shopping mall in the prefecture, set to open next year, as well as a multi-purpose auditorium big enough to stage international conferences and famous plays.
That seems cheap for a famous aquarium.
Oh, and eat some curry at Messian, on me. Saying that, he slapped 2 bills on the table as if he had struck it rich. The Sojiro's turn to make dinner tonight, after all. Keep in mind also, this is the 80s, so inflation. He's seeing you. Finished saying his piece, Sojiro returned his wallet to his coat pocket. It was then that Aoko realized what Sojiro meant by "be seeing you."
You mean you're not coming with us?
I have to work tonight. Sojiro was almost too quick with his response, helping Aoko to see things for what they really were. Rather than for Sojiro's benefit, his gesture was instead an attempt to ease the tension that built up between Aoko and Alice. Though if asked, both girls would tell you that it was an unnecessary gesture. However, for him to pay this much attention to the household, if anything, gave Aoko reason to reflect on her own immaturity. Aoko glanced over at the still-seated Alice. At the same time, Alice peeked up at Aoko from behind her book. They kept still, staring at each other.
I'll go if you go. I'm almost done with my book. Okay, it would be a waste not to.
Alice stood up from the sofa, resigned to her decision. Sojiro watched on, a satisfied smile upon his face. I think it's him alone now.
20 minutes later. As Aoko and Alice were done getting ready, Aoko called out to Sojiro in the drawing room. Alright, we're leaving now. Sojiro? Sojiro was crouched in the front of the television, unaware that the two had entered the room. Don't tell me the VCR's on the fritz again.
Oh, hey, good timing. How do I think, alright, they're still
As he
here
turned to face them, he froze.
They're still here for a minute, but... And facing them only exacerbated the problem.
You okay? Listen, we're taking you up on your offer and going out. Did you drop something behind the TV unit again?
Sojiro appeared to have gone stiff. Aoko stared at him curiously. Though Alice silently nodded along with his bizarre reaction. She kept her thoughts to herself. No. It's just... this, Still gawking, his voice stuck in his throat. He was blissfully unaware of the shock that he was experiencing was the direct result of his emotional state.
Spit it out already. God, I wish your weird reactions made sense sometimes. Does Alice have something on her face or...
Alice looked on in silence. He was not confused or in a daydream. That much he could tell. But this frozen look was, by all accounts, a first for Sojiro.
So, what is it then?
Oh, this thing here. How exactly do I use it? Shaking his head to regain his composure, Sojiro pointed to the VCR. The VHS player sat on the shelf beneath the TV.
What, you want to record something?
Aoko walked over and crouched next to Sojiro in front of the TV. No, I just borrowed a video from Kinomi, but it won't play.
Well, for starters, the TV isn't turned on.
With a click, the TV screen flickered alive.
Next, you have to switch on to the video input. That's weird. It's all dark. Knowing Kinomi, I'm surprised the recording doesn't start from the very beginning.
During this time period, videotapes were still rather expensive. Therefore, it was only natural for people to not want to waste a single second of the tape's 120-minute capacity.
Especially considering how serious he is about his hobbies. Oh well, we'll have to fast forward.
Aoko picked the small remote up and quickly pushed the button, marched forward.
Hmm?
The VCR beeped in protest. With several clicks and thuds, there was an empty whir from within the machine. Don't look at me, I didn't break it, I think. The vast majority of people who say this are actually very prone to destroying electrical equipment. But that was a separate matter.
There's no tape in here.
As soon as the words left her lips, it all made sense. Tape? Sojiro imagined adhesive tape, clearly confused.
Sojiro, did Kinomi give you something?
You mean the thing on the table? She should have been used to it by now. She caught herself wondering if Sojiro was being stupid deliberately.
Sojiro, what exactly did Kinomi say? Do you remember?
Yeah, he said, I'll totally lend you this tape. When you get home, just watch the TV.
Great, so you left out the most important part. Honestly, this is so sad it's almost scary. Just when I thought you could be normal. How did you make it through a day is a mystery to me.
Exasperated, Aoko fetched the tape in question. It was labeled Wild Animal Kingdom, African Adventure. To Aoko, this knocked Hosuke Kinomi down a level on this rating sheet kept with the student council.
Okay. You put the tape in the VCR and push play. The tab isn't broken, so just be careful not to hit the record button.
What's a tab?
Right here. See the indent on the side of the tape here? The tab is this little plastic cover. If you snap this tab off, you can't record this tape anymore. How can I explain this? Think of it like a notebook for class. If something is important, you can spray fixative over the page, so it can't be erased. It's like a physical barrier protecting against common human error.
She inserted the tape in the VCR and handed the remote to Sojiro. Usually if you write something on a tape, you're done recording with it and you would pop the tab out, so it's kind of odd that it's still there. Just a small interaction used to up a fair bit of Aoko's patience. Completely ignorant of Aoko's feelings, Sojiro gleefully pressed the play button. Phew, I was afraid we weren't going to make it this far for a second there. That was a bit much, even for... Oh wait, no, it's Aoko saying that.
Phew, I was afraid we weren't going to make it this far for a second there. That was a bit much, even for someone as out of place as you are. What were you doing up there in the mountains? Don't tell me you were some kind of karate master training against bears or something.
Whether or not she knew this was rude, Sojiro glanced at her with disdain. Was that an attempt to insult me?
You mean just now, or all the other times?
Aoko answered unapologetically. On the TV, a crocodile's yawning mouth appeared. Hey, they got the animal right this time. By the way, I realized that they're probably using the word wani, which can mean alligator or crocodile, so translators just messed up last time. Don't be ridiculous. Why would anyone train against bears? Sojiro turned towards the TV in a huff. Perhaps because of his rare outburst. As he turned to face with the gaping maw of a crocodile on the TV, he fell backwards in surprise. Aoko unpursed her lips upon seeing this, delighted. It was relieving to see the boy disarmed. Hey, Aozaki, these machines have gotten kind of dusty. Don't you clean them?
Why bother? I hardly ever use them, and Alice doesn't watch TV. I bought some exercise videos to train with, but got bored with them. Who would have thought you actually need to do the exercise instead of just watching the damn thing?
Aoko shrugged at her past superficiality. And Sojiro was led to believe yet another falsehood about modern life. The VCRs would go out of fashion.
Well then, we're off. Try not to burn the place to the ground. And in case you're wondering, I know you were lying about going to work tonight.
Aoko said, smiling as she walked out of the drawing room. Her grin was a cheap shot that left Sojiro speechless. He scratched his cheek. He was reminded of how she was not someone to be trifled with. After watching the end of the drama between the other two, Alice made the reception area as well. Made for the reception area. Left alone in the room, Sojiro took his seat on the sofa. Well, it was certainly not easy making everything run smoothly around these parts. Until they came back, he could enjoy his crocodile watching in peace. They took the subway from Misaki for 6 stations. From there, they rode another 3 stops by express train. After about an hour, Aoko and Alice arrived at Arisaka Station. While Misaki City was a mixture of old and new architecture, Arisaka was a brand new town built in accordance with the recent government ordinance. It was as though the entire town, full of tall buildings, sprouted up in the middle of nowhere. It was near the end of December, in the middle of winter break. Even the bustling plaza in Misaki was quiet compared to Arisaka in the evening. Whether it's a huge mall full of countless specialty stores or its crowded multi-purpose auditorium, there really was something for everyone here. For that reason, beyond the local residents, Arisaka Station was crowded with people from far and wide.
Cool. That must be their fancy new performance arts center. It's supposed to have the biggest concert hall in the prefecture. I wonder what it's like inside. Look how much grander it is than the buildings around it.
They made their way to the aquarium, weaving through the crowds. Aoko must have been used to city life, but Alice was silently anxious. The people passing by must have thought this pale girl was out of place, which Alice happened to agree with.
Oh, it says a big artist is coming summer of next year. Oh my god, it's Pink Trudy. Alice, this says it'll be their first live appearance in Japan.
Aoko exclaimed, overcome with excitement. This kind of pop rock band was right up Aoko's alley, but naturally Alice did not seem very interested.
I'm more amazed by the Polish orchestra they've invited to open for them. This must be costing them fortune. How incorrigible. Ah,
Aoko cursed under her breath before hurrying them along. Underneath the construction map read, with the support of the Kuonji group. The aquarium they were looking for was on the top floor of a massive building. An aquarium on the top floor? Maybe it was because it was no longer a new attraction, or perhaps because it was the first floor cinema drew the crowds. With only a few people scattered around the entrance, the atmosphere inside was very calm. Not quiet, but desolate. And far removed from the hustle and bustle outside. Perhaps they were going for that museum-like vibe. Alice quietly caught her breath, staring in awe. Like a child seeing the circus for the first time. Her eyes were wide in anticipation and wonder.
it's to the lady's liking, I see. Good, good. I guess Sojiro's idea wasn't totally off the mark then, huh?
Aoko found herself smiling as well. There was a certain joy in seeing Alice's wonderment.
Not really. I just find rooftop aquariums to be kind of novel.
According to the guide on the wall, the entrance to the aquarium was nearly as big as the Kuoji Mansion's foyer. The outdoor penguin show was apparently suspended due to the star penguin Flippy undergoing a treatment for an injury. Outdoors on top of a skyscraper?
It's dangerous.
And an unfortunate state of affairs, but one that did not stop Alice from continuing to read over the guide. Apparently she was quite familiar with penguin shows. Then...
Eh?
said like someone who could not believe what they saw. Alice quietly whimpered, as if holding back a scream.
Something the matter?
Aoko said, still looking at the floor plan. It was rare to see Alice getting this emotional outside of the mansion. For some reason, she was trembling. Nothing seemed terribly off about the aquarium's offerings.
There's no giant tortoises. No what? It's all wrong, Aoko. Why is there no giant tortoise exhibit? Why? I don't know. Are giant tortoises even aquatic? Maybe it's because they take up too much space.
They are definitely not aquatic.
Yep, turtle. Why though? They have penguins. It's not fair. Look, they even have a dolphin. This is absurd.
It was a bitter pill for Alice to swallow. The idea that they did not have a giant tortoise, despite having a dolphin, had Alice's eyes hot with indignation.
Now that you mention it, if penguins and dolphins are standard fare, you'd have thought they would at least have a giant tortoise. What were they thinking?
Aoko said, certain something like a giant tortoise would be boring and unpopular. She was sensible enough to read the room, however, and kept her thought to herself.
Let's go, Alice. We have tickets, so we can skip the line.
A few moments after the giant tortoise fiasco, presenting the tickets they received from Sojiro, they headed towards the once popular entrance. From the entrance gate, the corridor stretched into a dark hallway completely illuminated in blue. Figures and faces became mere silhouettes in the darkness. Not a darkness born from magecraft, but a man-made area of twilight. Okay, so I'm going to be honest, this is the one time in the game where I'm disappointed by the visuals. When they said they were going to an aquarium, I was expecting to see like whales and turtles and all that, but no, just some blue rectangles. That's your aquarium.
Wow, amazing. Thanks, Sojiro, for the present.
I mean, they had to cut corners somewhere, I guess, and this scene's not that important, but even so, I hope when the movie adaptation happens, they do a little better job here. A world of shadow and blue, the only light being from the illuminated tanks. The two witches continued walking down the artificial ocean corridor. Water tanks like windows into hundreds of different worlds, each with their own separate temperature and environment. A snapshot of the same place at different times. Mesmerized by the refracting images of the ocean floor, conversation grew sparse.
That reminds me, Alice. You have this huge mansion without a pool. What's up with that? Figures. You come to an aquarium and that's what you think about. Wanting superfluous things is a bad habit of yours, Aoko. Aw, a pool isn't superfluous. Besides, aren't pools more common in England than Japan? Or could it be that you can't swim? I've spent enough time in a swimsuit. I often swam in the lake as a child. And I never once lost a race to our big Saint Bernard. A Saint Bernard? Wait, don't tell me. You had trouble with your breathing, didn't you? Ugh. Spare me the swimming lesson. Crawl? Butterfly? The people who invented those are probably half fish anyway.
Clack, clack, clack. The pace was more delicate and solemn than a stroll along the beach. The conversation continued, but it was only particular for being particular. And here, the only thing to do was look at blue screens.
I'm proud of you, though. Leaving him alone in the house? You're not worried he'll go snooping in the West Wing, are you? He can't possibly be that foolish. Besides, it'd save us the trouble if he did. It's not that. I just don't think he's the type to break his word.
That he was not. Aoko nodded, her long hair waving back and forth, a certain gleam of surprise in her eyes. Onward they meandered to the next aquatic world. Clack, clack, clack.
By the way, is this your first time in an aquarium? Second, I went with a friend long ago. No way, really? Yes, really. More than 6 years ago when I was still in England. No, I mean the friend part. I thought you said you didn't have any friends. That was a long time ago. We even had the same name. We used to play all the time, but we fell out of touch. That's right. Alice must be a pretty common name over there. Here it's all Ryoko or Hanako and such. Indeed. Our names referencing colors like Aoko, Akako, Kuroko, or Shiroko. They all do end with ko, don't they?
To each their own, a society of names. The swirling of the waters was dizzying, much like the hectic world of humans. Their hands swung back and forth as they walked toward the next world. That looks exactly the same as the previous world.
Incidentally, Aoko, what exactly is your plan for him? Well, once our current issue is resolved and things calm down, I'll find the rune for erasing his memory, and he'll forget we ever existed. He won't be a bother for much longer. A bother to whom? Me? Oh, you know, me and you. Wow, this fish is really pretty. It makes me want to swim. Hey, we should go to the beach next summer. The beach? You mean by the ocean? Of course, you know. Fun under the hot summer sun. Sand between your toes, watching the sunset on the horizon. We couldn't go this year, so why don't we go together next year?
Funnily enough, in Multi-Blood type Lumina, at the end of Aoko's story, she actually does go to the beach and she thinks about calling Alice, but realizes that she's not good with technology because, you know, it's in the 2010s at that point.
Your optimism is exhausting. But that does sound nice. If we manage to survive until next summer, that is.
Clack, clack, clack. The two girls journeyed to the next oceanic wonderland, mutually taking in the sights. Visitors in these winter waters had begun to leave, satisfied by their touring. The sound of their footsteps heralded their farewell. An hour into the wayfaring sea voyage, losing themselves in the maze-like corridors of seemingly endless exhibits, they somehow found themselves on the next floor. Aoko had heard the aquarium was situated on the top floor and was shocked to find out there was yet another above it. It was likely by design that the actual top floor could only be accessed from within the aquarium. I do like the shading on this shot. Moments of intrigue such as this are what attractions are made of.
Alice?
Turning this way and that, she found Alice had disappeared. She had just been there, however, and Aoko took to looking for her. She soon found her nearby. Her white overcoat shone brightly in front of the dimly lit exhibit. She was staring motionless into the water tank. She almost looked to be staring through it, distracted by something.
What's wrong, Alice? Are you feeling okay?
She spoke, hoping to snap her out of it. Alice's typically cold aura seemed to have all but left her.
Is it a rare fish? This looks like the tank they use for all the fish that don't fit anywhere else.
Alice gave a non-committal response. Just ahead of her gaze was a single shadow.
Wow, an ocean sunfish.
Alice remained motionless, unresponsive to Aoko's sarcasm. She stood in silence, watching the poor little fish drifting listlessly in the tank, where they put the fish that did not fit anywhere else, here at the end of the hall. Put it lightly, sunfish were not especially pleasant to look at. I don't know, they look pretty cool in Animal Crossing.
They're adorable. Heck, there's even a sunfish game.
Looking at one, it begged the question of what direction evolution wanted to take with it. It looked like it swam under using a rudder, using rudder-like fins on its top and bottom, but lacked the grace of other fish. To Aoko, its eyes, body, and strange movements made it an awkward creature. But
Hey, Alice. Let's check out the whale shark exhibit over there. It sounds really exciting, don't you think?
Alice, unmoved, fixated on the sunfish. It clumsily drifted around its tank, occasionally bumping into the glass as it turned.
Aoko, this little one can't swim well.
Alice extended her finger toward the glass, then retracted it, feeling childish.
Well, whatever. I suppose sunfish have their own charm.
It did not seem like Alice was going to budge. Resigning herself, Aoko stayed with Alice while she stared at the cushion-shaped fish.
Huh. They have eyes like a pufferfish. It also says here that the females can produce more eggs than any other known vertebrae. Up to 300 million at a time. Neat. The babies become prey to other fish, so in a way giving birth to so many is a means of survival for them.
Though Aoko seemed taken in by the biological details of the fish, Alice couldn't have cared less. She was lost in the ebb and flow of emotions between wonder and woe with every clumsy bump of the fish into the glass. And out of nowhere, she softly spoke.
About before? Before when? About him. About leaving the house in his care.
It seemed like Alice had returned to her normal self. That cold aura. Wherever, inside the mansion or out, that stubborn chill that pushed people away was back.
I haven't changed my mind. He is still a complete unknown. How can I trust someone I know nothing about? I guess. But then why let him? Because I know you, Aoko. You always make the right decision. So, I'm trusting your judgment on that matter.
It was true. She did not know Sojiro, nor had any intention to. But because of her trust in Aoko, she could trust Aoko's decision to allow him to stay. It seemed Alice was challenging her own feelings. She said she could not trust someone she did not know. Or in other words, she wished to trust a person. And in order to do so, she needed to know more about them.
Well, I don't really know how to respond to that, Alice. Also, I had no idea that you trusted me that much. I do trust you. I may not be fond of you, but I trust you. Because we're partners in crime, aren't we?
Her white coat swayed to and fro. Just like that, the short excursion had come to an end. Straight ahead was the exit back to the real world. A step away from the exhibit was a step towards becoming better roommates.
Such a kind face, but so clearly scarred.
One last small whisper. And with that, she bid farewell to the lonely figure in the tank. The sun sets early during winter, falling below the horizon by 4 in the afternoon. Evening seemed to arrive at the mansion earlier than the city. I see, now I know all about crocodiles. I guess,
Sojiro sat alone, sipping his warm tea in the chilly room. He relaxed on the couch, staring out the window, having had his fill of crocodiles. Once he sprawled out on the sofa, his body refused to move. Maybe he'd had always wanted to try it. After 3 straight hours of crocodile watching, he wondered what it would be like to laze there for the remainder of the day, as he nervously checked over his shoulder. Just as he was considering taking the opportunity to nap until Aoko and Alice returned, an unfamiliar sound echoed throughout the halls of the mansion. Undergoing a sluggish evolution of his very own, he rose from all fours to being a bipedal. There was a knocking sound at regular intervals. The sound distinctly coming from the front door was more familiar now. He had experienced it before during his days in the apartment.
A newspaper salesman?
As he made for the foyer, Sojiro noted how impressed he was that they had hiked all the way up the hill. The sound resounded eerily. Without a doorbell of any kind, visitors had no choice but to rap on the door using whatever they had in hand. It would take an iron-clenched fist to produce that kind of sound. From his position in the hall, the front door looked like an ornately built fortification. The strong double doors looked as though they could withstand any onslaught of blows. They rattled in protest to the repeated knocking. Try as this person might, it seems no amount of enemy attack could breach the castle gate. But Sojiro, having experience selling newspapers himself, announced himself.
Just a second.
He knew what it was like to be in their shoes, so was unsurprised by their unwillingness to surrender.
Oh. Do you know who that is?
Was that the lady from the pachinko parlor?
Yep. I was wondering, but do you know her from anywhere else?
No, unless she's a craft essence, then I might have seen her.
I guess she's been on a craft essence, but I don't know if you have, if you've ever seen that one. But if you don't know, well, they'll explain it later. So there stood the second surprise today. Oh yeah, yeah. Keep going.
Sojiro stood speechless and motionless. The young woman hardly looked the part of a newspaper salesman. Standing in the courtyard against a backdrop of dusk horizon, she looked more suited to being a resident of the Western-style mansion, at least more so than Sojiro. She had a dainty frame but a striking presence nonetheless. She was a little shorter than Sojiro, but tall for a woman. Her light green clothing was delicate yet flashy, and clearly something out of foreign fashion. Bold but prim and proper. Though slightly loud, her appearance spoke of strength and confidence. The kind of woman not to be trifled with that Sojiro knew all too well. Only, unlike the ones he knew, this woman appeared more friendly than intimidating. Perhaps it was her short hair that made her look approachable. Bright and brown, it stopped just above the nape of her neck. Sojiro, yet to say a word, thought what a shame it was to be so short. She looked at him and offered a smile. Despite looking older than Sojiro, this made her appear impish and cute. Sojiro knew himself to be made of stronger stuff than to fall for cute smiles, and found it more than a little suspicious. At any rate, it was rude to stare for so long.
Can I help you?
He asked shyly, steeling himself. To which she replied, "Good evening. Is Aoko home?"
I think she's actually going to be talking a bit here, so she smiled as she used Ako's first name with a sense of familiarity. Oh,
Oh, was that the mysterious sister?
Yep. So, yeah, so this is Toko Aozaki, who has been in the background of the entire Fate franchise, but very rarely makes an on-screen appearance. Aozaki isn't home right now. She smiled again, this time deviously upon learning of Aoko's absence.
Then I take it Miss Kuonji's away too?
Sojiro looked perplexed. This was the first time he had heard Alice referred to by her last name only, and again spoke with customary respect.
Let me see. It's nice that they can get out during the day instead of only the dead of night. I was under the impression of living together was merely a facade, but they really do get along.
Sojiro found himself nodding in response to her smile. Though it was clear she knew Aoko and Alice, she was giving him an uncomfortable feeling. Likely in her mid-20s, she did not appear that much older than he was. Behind her carefree tone and bright smile, she was clearly trying to hide something.
So they won't be home until the evening then?
No, expect them home before the last train, though.
I see. And who might you be?
Sojiro, ever so troubled by her forwardness, wanted to ask her the same. Alas, where are you was a question far too difficult for who are you? It was too difficult for Sojiro. Sorry, I don't really know how to answer that. I guess I'm just house-sitting. I'm a friend of Aozaki's, to tell the truth. response not with an ounce of truth to it. The young woman's face lit up at what she believed was the boy's attempt to tease her.
Aren't you a funny one? What's your name, dear?
It's Sojiro Shizuki. The shy answer made her giggle. Sojiro could not understand what he said was so funny, but her laugh did not offend him. Rather than seeming derogatory, it came across as warm and affable. Then, after finishing giggling, she looked at him straight in the eye and gave him a soft look.
I think I like you, Sojiro. A fine name, though it doesn't really suit you. Now then, pour me some tea, will you?
Huh? Wait. She stepped past him into the mansion and swiftly left him at the door.
Oh wow, it's just as I remember it. I thought she would repair the damaged pieces. What with taking the trouble to bring them all the way here? It looks like even the warped columns are as warped as ever.
She said, cheerfully inspecting the foyer. Sojiro still stood at the entrance. The clicking of her heels on the wooden floor jumped around as she moved towards the drawing room.
Why are you standing there? The drawing room is this way, isn't it?
She disappeared from the foyer to the drawing room, oddly familiar with the layout of the house. Does she know Aozaki from school? Or maybe she knows Alice? Sojiro muttered to himself, walking to the drawing room. He entered to see the woman walking around the room gleefully. By the way, I think I would give her a slightly deeper voice. Not too deep, but more mature. Like a child seeing a park for the first time in ages. Breathing in the nostalgia. Trolling it as girls are wont to do.
Wait a minute, this TV is...
She stared at the television inquisitively, perhaps owing to the fact that she had never seen a 30-inch television before. Awkwardly, the TV was still displaying images of the wild animal kingdom. Sojiro wished he would have stopped the video before he answered the door. May I? He blurted out, attempting to regain his composure. He had many questions, but first he resolved himself to, at the very least, ask her name. With that, she turned to him with a cold look on her face. She glared at Sojiro over her glasses, her long and slender brows pointing at him, as if to hint at a threat. A gaze that made him feel like he had chosen his words very poorly. Sojiro apologetically clammed up. The young woman moved in.
Come now, Sojiro. May I? Really? Do I look like some old lady to you?
She snickered. Her disapproving glare melted into a teasing smile. Of course not. It would be more accurate to say that she had the air of an older sister, or at least now that Sojiro attempted to reply using only gestures, to which she grinned smugly.
Very well then. Let's do away with the formality, shall we? They're beginning to bore me anyway.
She said, taking a seat on the sofa. Naturally and effortlessly, and without making a sound. Her posture and movements exuded sophistication, and she required no words to instruct him to hurry along and make the tea.
He really matches the house. Her outfit is the couch color, and her hair is the wall color.
Yeah. Without pressing her further, Sojiro headed to the kitchen. He figured she would not talk until she had some tea. He chose the fashion he was forced to replace once before after using it without permission. Since she was there to see Aoko, he would serve her the tea in Aoko's Sivres teacup. Into the cup as blue as the ocean depths, he calmly poured the tea before returning to the drawing room. Gently, he placed the teacup on the table and looked at the woman. Forgive me for asking earlier, but you're an acquaintance of Aozaki's, yes? Despite being told otherwise, Sojiro could not help but stand on ceremony. He would actively have to try not to. Displeased or disappointed, she glared at him once again.
That. It's better if you don't use Aozaki. It's beginning to grate on me. Just call her Aoko.
He said, not at all upset, as she slowly raised the cup to her lips to take a sip. It was the kind of moment Aoko and Alice might react to by berating the boy. But the woman chose to brush it off with a smile. He did not realize that at that moment he would soon enough understand that some people did appreciate his efforts, regardless of whether they were misguided. Look, I made the cup disappear.
Yep. Come, don't stand there. Sit. I don't like being looked down on.
By the way, I have trouble comprehending what's going on with her shoes. Like, they're kind of like just blending into her stockings. Like,
They could just be really, really long boots.
I guess, but like, why the gradients? Like,
She fancy like that.
I guess the gradient's on the stockings that she's just wearing like normal heels, but Sojiro tilted his head, noticing a slight familiarity with the manner of her speaking. Almost as if she had been talking to someone he has seen before. Wait a minute. Looking at her sitting on the sofa, forgotten memories began to rise to the surface. Noticing his reaction, she became visibly delighted.
You remember me? I can tell you I was surprised as you are. I came all the way here to see Aoko, and instead I find you standing there to greet me.
Oh. Now that she was laughing, Sojiro remembered everything. He'd only seen her for an instant, but there was no mistake. It was her. It had to be the woman smoking a long cigarette winning at the pachinko parlor.
Crazy, right? You gave me quite the fright that day. You took one look at me and ran away. How terrifying you must think I am, reacting like that. You hurt my feelings, you know.
She clearly enjoyed the memory. She was right. He mistook the shadow he had seen in the park for the woman and ran. Though he had learned it was Aoko a day later. Even though it was clearly a case of mistaken identity, he now knew why he had thought them one and the same. So that's why. They have the same air. Finally, he realized the true identity of the woman before him. He chided himself for not realizing it sooner. You must be... Just as he was about to say it, she held up her hand to interrupt him. She pointed at him like she was aiming a gun.
Forgive me. You're just too cute. I got carried away with teasing you. It's a little late, but my name is Aoko Aozaki. Surprise, surprise, I'm Aoko's big sister.
That figures. He should have known. With a smile that could impart courage to any that glanced upon it, Toko looked just like how Sojiro imagined. Aoko would be in the not... just imagined Aoko would be in the not-too-distant future. Well, about that. It all made sense. While Aoko was earnest and diligent, Toko was shrewd and playful.
I heard my sister was in trouble. So I came all the way over here to set her straight.
Aoko's sister chuckled coyly while sipping her tea. Lured by her charm, Sojiro sat on the sofa as well. He felt like he could relax a little now that the initial shock of receiving an unexpected guest had subsided. Just like that, it was almost 5 in the afternoon. Aoko and Alice would be returning from their excursion soon. This was Misaki City's only subway line. Only half a year had passed since its opening, and at the end of the fairly new platform, the two girls stood. The time was 6:30 in the evening. They had been idling for around 20 minutes since returning from Arasaka, and yet had yet to return to street level.
Aoko,
There was a hint of irritation in Alice's voice.
I'm not done yet. Just one more, okay?
Aoko begged Alice, hands together, trembling from the cold. It was rare to see her act as childish. There was no doubt Tobimaro would consider this behavior more strange than cute if he were there. From the ends of the platform, Aoko peered into the creeping darkness where the tracks led.
You have the strangest taste.
Alice muttered, sitting on the bench with forbearance. Any other day, and she would have been fine heading back by herself, but today she was in a good mood and decided to humor Aoko. If possible, she would have liked to return still in good spirits, as such spells of positivity, for her at least, tended to dissipate sooner rather than later. Eyes calmly closed, her placid demeanor conveyed her feelings well enough. Thus the two of them waited on the platform alone for the subway train they had no intention of riding. The recently opened subway, high prices and low familiarity made for relatively few passengers coming from Misaki City. Thanks to the low foot traffic, the platform was still as good as new. There was something primeval about a subway devoid of people. It was a picture of tranquility, free of human interference, lifeless and silent. A land unmolested by living creatures, where only speechless organisms dwelt. The artificial fluorescent lighting highlighted its soullessness. It was a cave where the light ended and the shadows began. Riderless vessels disappearing into the dark. The platform wedged between two tracks, like a jetty stretching out into a subterranean sea of black. In this place, far removed from the world above, Aoko waited with eyes closed for the familiar rumble. It was Aoko who proposed that they delay their return and wait on the platform. The reason was simple. Aoko Aozaki enjoyed the soothing sound of passing subway trains.
I won't be able to go see any more live bands this year, so at least let me have this.
She said to Alice, her eyes still closed. Alice did not even nod as 3 trains had already passed following her decision to stay with Aoko. Silence again. Aoko waited for the next train with anticipation. Alice sat and stared at the wall of the subway patiently. According to the display board, the next train was due to arrive in 5 minutes. From the dark tunnel came wind and rumbling. A purposely placed bounded field now surrounded the platform. There's no sign of any station personnel, and the entrances and exits were few and narrow. With the lack of bystanders, the field was hardly necessary. Suddenly, 6 figures appeared in front of the stairs leading to the surface, all sharing the same face. Motionless and with smiles like the crescent moon, they stared at Aoko and Alice.
Dull moment.
Alice let out a quiet sigh.
Alice, what's wrong? Nothing at all. Did you notice you and I were the only ones to get off at this station? Sure, I mean, the subway's usually pretty dead anyway.
Aoko cut herself off by tutting in annoyance.
What tipped you off? The impending gloom I felt a moment ago. This wouldn't have happened if we weren't together. Not that I'm blaming you. Like, I'm gonna let you have all the fun, please.
Never moving or making eye contact, their words stoic and calm. In contrast, the figures near the stairs began to stir. They advanced in unison on all fours, as though it regressed to a quadrupedal state. like human-sized ants. One after another, they swarmed forth. The din of clattering came not just from the platform entrance, but from the subway tunnel as well. At a glance, they numbered at least 30 strong. The creepy sound of skittering echoed off the subway walls.
Ridiculous. Forget Misaki. With this many automata, you could take over the whole of southern France.
No. You need wyverns to take over France, not automata.
Yep. True. But more importantly, who would want or need this many? Whatever. Junk is junk, right?
One of the horde leapt forward in response to Aoko's insult. It was a sudden charge, like a hurtling dump truck. Excuse me. Alice remained still. As though expecting the attack, Aoko swung her right arm in an arc. The blue missile of light was easily repelled. Her magic bullet's snap had little effect against the puppets. They scrambled over each other like frogs, heads jerking and twisting in search of prey.
30 in total. Sorry, Alice. But I'm gonna need you to hang back. I can't have you thinking last time was my best.
As she spoke to Alice, who was still standing next to the bench, Aoko stepped towards the edge of the platform. From the myriad of regrets she still had for the amusement park, the House of Mirrors stung the most. She was caught off guard in the previous engagement with those puppets. With adequate preparation and confidence in Alice's backup, she would not let that happen again. Now your magic crest, she would have revenge and be vindicated from.
Get behind me, Aoko. You'll be toast if you stand there.
It took Alice raising one finger to the sky for Aoko to stop.
Ooh, ominous. Alice, wait, you can't.
In the depths of the ocean black, the bells of night chimed out. The jetty, as if embraced by the sea god like Poseidon or Wadatsumi, was awash with white particles.
You'll always leave a mess, Aoko. Not to mention, the next train will be arriving soon, and...
From beyond the white veil, her form blurred and stretched upward on tiptoes. Like a melancholy ballerina, the figures surrounding the prima ballerina bristled in response to the strange aura. Though puppets were inhuman mystical vessels, they had far more reason to fear Alice than they did the human Aoko. They began to flee. Whoever their master was, they sensed enough danger in order to order retreat. However, it was too late. The lead dancer in this ballet had them captivated, unable to move, as if their Achilles tendons had been severed. And...
And it wasn't just you who ruined my mood.
She removed her black glove. Unlike her mentioned demeanor, and her cruel aura morphed to a fierce, biting cold one, freezing all in their tracks. Gloves floated to the ground. The white haze grew even thicker. The massive shadows cried out for mercy.
Let's play a little then, shall we?
Within the dense, nebulous mist, a dark fairy tale manifested. From inside, the only thing seemingly real was the sound of her voice, a macabre melody. By the way, this is the same thing she sent against Robin at the end of the second Wonderful World of Ploys. Oh, jeez. Feasting, grinding, crunching. At last, the final puppet fell. On the walls, on the floor, on the ceiling. Tragic sounds of their demise filled the air.
Said Aoko was the one who was messy, but look at this.
Yeah. Also, why did they bleed? Their twisted shrieks plastering the subway surface like indelible blood-like stains. All 30 of the puppets, promptly yet slowly as though to savor their taste, were completely devoured by the mystifying monster. All save one appendage, a loathsome severed arm on the platform.
You were carrying that thing around this whole time?
Aoko spoke sideways to Alice, who made no attempt to hide her disgust. A beast of the fog. One of her great 3 Bloyd Kishaws. The Meister's Rose Hound, Wander Snatch. It was a name carrying immense violence and devastation. Aoko's words stung, since Alice is the one harboring its true form. The great 3 ploys wielded terrifyingly powerful curses. It was one thing to carry it around for self-defense, but keeping it a secret from her companion did not amuse Aoko in the slightest. It was like going out to eat with a grenade in your pocket.
Just tell me next time, okay? Other ploys are fine, but that guy... Leave him at home, will you? I apologize. It's just... I haven't let him feed lately, so...
Alice walked slowly along towards the puppet arm rolling along the platform. What had just occurred made perfect sense. It needed to eat, so she let it eat. But the beast could not be seen, and there was no bloodshed on account of the victims being made of plastic.
What do you mean, no bloodshed? Say, Aoko?
Alice said, picking up the puppet arm.
Look at this. Until now, they were thinking our opponent was a puppet master, but I think you're wrong. Did you notice? Those puppets were too new. These had to have been made after the 17th century, which doesn't make sense. Wait, what did you just say?
Those sounded contradictory. Automa typically performed better with age. After the 17th century, as the magical concept of using puppets and mannequins declined, automata suitable for combat became harder to produce. In recent years of automata manufacturing, even low-rank familiars to be used in training could be produced inexpensively and with relatively decent quality. Therefore, it was common for modern puppet masters to collect parts made from before the 17th century and use them in their creations. The high price of automata often came not from their combat abilities, but the rarity of the parts used to make them.
They're that rare, huh? I'm just thinking of how common they are in FGO.
Yeah. However, the enemy mage controlling these puppets use them as fodder, as if they grew on trees. I mean, to be fair, you're usually time traveling when we run into them, so...
True.
The only conclusion that could be made, therefore, was that their current opponent was a spoiled, rotten, upstart mage with no territory of their own to control. Or so Alice and Aoko imagined, anyway.
And another thing. The internal design of this one is reminiscent of the ones from Misaki City's Bounded Field. Almost as if they were soldiers defending a city.
Alice presented the evidence to Aoko, who was waving away the fog around her. She felt profound surprise and then rapid realization.
I see. So that's how it is.
Aoko muttered to herself, violently hurling the arm against the platform. Her face was twisted with anger and a hint of fear.
If you're going to send this many of these things at us, you might as well send a whole lot of them then. That's why grandfather's bounded field didn't have any effect on her. And that's how she knew my weaknesses. And that's how she found and removed the sigil so easily.
I think that's Aoko talking. Actually, heard twice in a row.
I should have known.
Alice quietly looked at the amusement at Aoko's furious rambling.
Aoko, so you're saying the one who made these is none other than... That's right. When it came to making things, she always had me beat.
Aoko glared at the severed arm. Furious at its creator and herself for taking so long to figure out it was her.
But it all adds up now. As much as I hate to admit it, our current enemy is my big sister, no doubt about it. She was the one who was meant to inherit our land, Alice.
Notice the blood is gone now.
Yep.
Desolate subway platform returned to silence. Aoko's words lingered uncomfortably in the air. Roswell start. By the way, as a reminder, Toko is actually the one who made Shiro's artificial body at the end of Heaven's Feel.
Oh.
They said they went and saw a famous puppet master who was apparently then on the run from the Mages Association. She was designated for a sealing.
Makes sense.
A short time ago at the Kuonji estate, the videotape finished playing. VCR had automatically stopped playback, forgoing the need to hit the stop button to avoid the static storm. What remained on screen was the reflection of Sojiro and Toko Aozaki, sitting opposite each other in conversation.
A direct attack without warning because her secret was exposed. Aoko never did play well with others.
It was hard to tell if she was being patronizing or indifferent. Toko Aozaki took a sip from her cup as she listened to Sojiro's story. She would have savored the anecdote about the amusement park kerfuffle if it were not for the poor excuse of a cup of tea in her hands.
Thank you for that. I feel so informed. I haven't seen Aoko in ages, so I can only imagine the kind of woman she's grown into. And as her sister, the least I can do is apologize. I'm sorry you had to experience such a tragic event, Sojiro. That girl does have a tendency to be rather headstrong.
You said it. Sojiro was enjoying the conversation despite having to relive those events. About an hour passed by while the two of them sat in conversation, neither short on topics to discuss. Aoko was an easy topic for both of them, so the conversation centered mostly around her.
By the way, I've been wondering, and I hope you don't mind me asking.
But with courteous posture, her eyes shined with curiosity. Her elegant demurrer caused Sojiro's heart to beat faster. Of course, I don't mind. Despite his caution, he could not help but show deference to her. Whether Toko found Sojiro charming or not was unclear as she affectionately smiled at him.
Oh, I was hoping that she was gonna ask him, like, so by the way, I hope you don't mind, but what's with that collar around your neck?
Yeah.
Well, you see, you surprised me the last time you ran away, but today I'm surprised by something new. Is that some kind of in vogue fashion accessory?
Hell, you
Oh,
are
yeah.
right. Come again? Toko tilted her head, her eyes fixated on the collar that Aoko had given him snugly wrapped around his neck.
Is that a new style choker? You know, I could swear it was a...
The bespectacled woman did her best to hold her tongue. On a completely unrelated note, in another decade, similar accessories would become a standard part of any visual kei artist's wardrobe. Oh, not at all. It's obviously a collar for dogs.
I knew it! It's rather cute, and may I add, very much suits you. Did you put it on?
Toko stared intently, examining the strap. Well, he had never been very conscious of the collar till now. For some reason, Sojiro found himself blushing. Yes, I put it on by myself.
No, silly. I mean, who gave it to you? Was it Aoko? Or perhaps Miss Kuonji?
Aoko gave it to me. Toko simply nodded in satisfaction at Sojiro's candid response.
Makes you Aoko's property.
She coldly muttered. With this, her cordial atmosphere began to turn. Sojiro nodded, naturally oblivious to the sting in her words. She does like to own things. He said casually, causing Toko to burst out in laughter. Toko was the quirky type of person to laugh when least appropriate. As her laugh tapered off to a giggle, she picked up her now empty teacup.
Belong to Aoko as well? How funny considering she hates blue things on account of the blue character in her name.
Yeah, that's right. Would you like another cup? I'm not sure when they'll be back.
No thank you, actually. They'll be returning shortly, as I calculated.
Sojiro casually nodded, still clueless to the premeditation of her visit. But then the strangeness of her phrasing dawned on him, and he tilted his head in confusion. Miss Toko? Toko sighed once in response.
Forgive me, Sojiro, but would you allow me to take off my glasses?
He wondered why she would need to ask his approval, but nodded anyway to confirm his consent.
That's very kind of you. Though I do wish I could have enjoyed more of your hospitality.
Toko touched the temples of her glasses. If you were to look close enough, you might have noticed how her slender fingers were scarred. Small, fine scars from years of repeated cuts. Instantly, her glasses fell away from her face, resigned to their fateful fall. It happened so fast, Sojiro barely understood what he saw. The frame cracked into pieces as it slid down her face onto her lap.
Kudos to you, sister. 30 in one go. Not bad.
Toko could sit behind her veneer no longer. By removing her glasses, the elegant lady of moments ago was gone. Any semblance of warmth and kindness had disappeared. What sat on the sofa was one deplorable mage, her demeanor darkening the room. Sojiro sat speechless on the sofa. Across from him was a completely changed Toko, glaring back at him menacingly. More malice and magical energy was now emanating from Toko than when Aoko tried to kill Sojiro. She sat titillated at the prospect of the young boy's shock and fear at her transformation. Such expectations, however, were often left unfulfilled when it came to Sojiro. He broke her glasses. Sojiro burned it out in surprise. Her hands stopped as she reached for a cigarette, the wind taking out of her sails. That was unfortunate. Do you have another pair?
No, forget them. It's not as if I actually need them to see correctly. As long as myself exists, data is received subjectively by my 5 senses. The entire world is in a fog. You shouldn't trust what you can only see with your eyes.
Her speech had taken on a clinical tone. This, too, did not seem to shake Sojiro. Right, so what you're saying is... Sojiro began, unflinchingly. Toko scowled back at him. After some consideration, she came to the conclusion that she needed to be blunt with the boy. By some twist of fate, it was a headache she now unknowingly shared with her sister.
It's like this, Sojiro. I placed some obstacles in Aoko's way to give us some time together. You are merely Aoko's property, correct? Then I won't worry about that pretty little head of yours. But I must confess, dear Sojiro, I am your enemy.
Though he understood her words, the clock's second hand would rotate fully twice over before anyone next spoke. They sat across from each other, eyes locked. Sojiro's shoulders tightened nervously. He had finally understood the true danger of the situation.
Surprised?
Toko asked with a grin. Despite the spitting image of each other, without her glasses, Toko's smile was rather sinister. Even though you're Aozaki's sister? Her smile pierced him as he asked the obvious. Toko was no longer surprised that Sojiro would be more concerned about the safety of others over his own. In just one short hour, she had come to understand Sojiro Shizuki better than he knew himself.
Contrary, it's because I'm her sister. I'm obligated to take away what is hers. I won't stop until I crush every last thing she holds physically and emotionally dear. For instance, if she has come to rely on the city, then I will happily go so far as to destroy it. But you, I wasn't expecting you.
Toko, her eyes closed, felt sorrow. Behind her troubled expression, there was a silent conflict.
I don't know if I should be angry at the world for being impartial, or lament the serendipity of life. I suppose it's all part of the counterforce.
A rare mention of the counterforce.
Innocent outsiders get killed all the time in this world of ours, but I've never met anyone quite like you. Or rather, never imagined a guy like you could exist.
Toko sighed at the ceiling and stirred in her seat. She seemed to have overcome an unexpected moment of uncertainty.
You don't look like Aoko's ace in the hole. The dim but nice stranger too pitiful to put out of his misery. But as much as I want to leave you be, my sixth sense is screaming at me that I should erase you now and be done with it.
More plainly put, she had made up her mind to kill him. Though Sojiro was somewhat flattered at how she was grossly inflating his importance in all this, what dawned on him was the fact that, through karmic irony, Toko had inevitably arrived at the same conclusion as her sister. However, this was no time for idle thoughts. Sojiro readied himself to stand up from the sofa in such a way as to not draw attention to the plan so clearly written all over his face. Make a run for it.
Silly boy. Don't give yourself away like that. If you're going to run, then run. But if you value your life, then don't move a muscle. In other words, you won't make it in halfway to the door before I get you. Now be a good boy and sit still.
So you're not going to kill me?
For the time being, I like you, Sojiro. Well, not exactly. The truth is, I might be the only one who can save you.
What? She looked at the perplexed Sojiro straight in the eyes. Though actually brown, her eyes gleamed a piercing red, like the edge of a blade.
It doesn't look red to me.
Like the edge of blade.
Mhm.
It was at this moment an overwhelming sense of dizziness overcame Sojiro. His mind went numb, like he couldn't tell who he was. as if he was drifting into a sinister sleep from which he'd never awake. Sojiro's clenched jaw, desperate to maintain consciousness. Toko's eyes devoured him like the bottomless pit of quicksand, and in that moment it all became clear to him. It no longer mattered that she was Aoko's sister, or that she was Alice's sworn enemy. Aoko Aozaki's deadly battle with the girls had become his battle. Which is why, when you find yourself feeling a special spark for a stranger met mere moments ago, the feeling is not to be trusted. For you may simply be attempting to fulfill an emptiness with the same mold as yours, with more emptiness. Sojiro tried to drag his body away from his henceforth unencountered sense of danger, but found that it would not respond. Toko tilted her head towards him, eyes fixated on him.
Your instincts weren't wrong. You do have something in common with me. Or maybe you're just close to me. Maybe we're picky about all the same foods. It's something to consider. The problem is, you're more biased than I am.
Biased. She clearly used a different definition of the word than the one Sojiro knew. Biased. It meant that he was alone. He was an outsider who didn't belong in this town. A sudden and seething anger eclipsed his gentle heart. But I'm not alone. Sojiro shot back with all the enmity he could muster, as he faced the witch named Aoko Aozaki. If he had not, he feared he would never escape her gaze.
See? That's precisely what makes you biased. And the sooner you realize that, the better. Humans are hardy creatures. No matter what life throws at them, they find a way to survive. But Aoko can't tolerate them, because she's a sort of stranger who can't stand anything.
Toko leaned over the table. She reached out, grabbed Sojiro's collar, and roughly pulled him towards her.
But enough about her. All I care about is getting to have you. In fact, I wanted you from the moment you whispered your name. You, with your lack of self-awareness and your sense of powerlessness. The future must seem like such a foreign concept to someone like you. Your mind inevitably looks to the past. But just as the lesser self comes before the soy, the greater self, the normal flow of time will always reject time itself.
Like time travel.
It's the same for me as it is for you. Arg, I've done it again, haven't I? How could you possibly even begin to...
Toko trailed off mid-sentence. As she pulled Sojiro closer, her own eyes reflected in his. She noticed the merciful expression on her face. Sojiro got to thinking. He had no hostility towards this woman. He bore no grudge, harbored no desire to kill her. He was aware only of his anger and aimless compassion. He wished he could give her the answers she wanted, but... I don't really know what you're talking about. Sojiro replied apologetically. A verbal reply to the visible question he perceived in his eyes. Toko showed no sign of disappointment. Instead, the corners of her lips turned upward in delight.
Of course, you wouldn't comprehend the language of magecraft. Here, and here I'm trying to wax philosophical to you. How foolish of me. Small courtesies can have the opposite effect after all. I should have put it in plainer, more primitive terms. Oh, I do like you, Sojiro.
Her fingers dug into his throat as if she were tearing at the leather. Perhaps he could be hers if only she could rip it off.
Sweet boy, leave Aoko and be with me. I may not have a use for you, but at least I can protect you. Or because I'm bored, you could be my plaything.
It had taken many approaches, but she seemed to have decided on this one. The lengths to which she went to seduce him were not lost on Sojiro. And truth be told, they were not wholly unwelcome. Back to the matter at hand. I respectfully decline. Sojiro chose the dark response, as he did.
Why?
Because it wouldn't be good for you. He had confidence in that, at least. Toko's overestimation of him aside, Sojiro knew for the fact that he had to escape this woman's clutches. This tete, I still don't know how to pronounce that. Tete-a-tete can only be concluded by one of two participants, Toko or the individual she was currently infatuated with. On a hunch, the boy mustered all the conviction he could feign. She gently removed her hand from his collar and jabbed him in the chest, causing him to topple back onto the sofa.
Very well. If that's the way it must be, I'll just have to think of you as Aoko's personal property then.
The scarred red mage quietly stood up.
Well, Aoko will be here at any moment. I'd best be on my way. She has no chance of defeating me. Tell her that for me, won't you?
Sure, but... Sojo's reply from the sofa stopped the exiting Toko in her tracks. Then, like a student humbly inquiring of her teacher, Sojiro pointed to the object in Toko's hand and asked, what are you doing with that cup? Surprised, she looked down on the teacup in her right hand that she had forgotten she was holding. She hadn't even realized that she had been holding the cup in the entire time. Impressive, considering she was also holding a cigarette.
Oh, this? I might as well take it with me.
The act of taking something without the owner's permission is commonly referred to as theft. Thank you, narrator. However, this was more likely the typical relationship between Aoko and Toko, share and share alike, and so forth. Sojiro nodded to show that he understood. Unsure if his nod was sincere or not, Toko smiled that gleeful grin for the second time since taking her glasses off.
You certainly are an odd one. The question of your worth aside.
For just a moment, she had returned to the affable Aoko Aozaki he met before the glasses came off. Leaving him with the image of her smile, she departed the mansion. Her broken glasses remained sitting on the drawing room table. Oh yeah, by the way, another connection to the previous works. Shiki's glasses originally belonged to Toko. Aoko stole them.
Of course. We're home!
No sooner had the eerie visitor left than Aoko and Alice returned home. Despite Aoko's sour mood, she seemed as merry as ever. Despite everything that had happened and their trip having its fair share of problems, she still had fun. Whereas Alice was her usual stoic self. With a form not unlike a parent following behind a rampaging toddler, cleaning up their mess. The scene of their return was like something out of a TV sitcom, and lost in thought, Sojiro forgot to greet them.
Did anything happen while we were out, Sojiro?
Aoko asked, more so out of etiquette than curiosity, while removing her coat. Without answering, he stood up from the sofa. Yeah, I took up half my day, actually. Other than that, it was just cold. Want me to make some tea?
Please. You can't plan anything without a hot cup of tea in your hands.
Sojiro was on his way to the kitchen to prepare tea even before Aoko had finished her upbeat response.
Wait a minute. Something feels off.
He was following his same tea brewing routine as always, but somehow something did not feel the same. Oh wait, I think he said that. Oh well. One second, I gotta blow my nose. So in a trance, Sojo returned to the drawing room where they were sitting down and placed the tea on the table. I think that's Alice.
What do you intend to do now, Aoko? We'll have to search for her on foot. We can't play this one defensively. If we spend time fortifying defenses here, she'll just have more time to create more puppets.
They conversed with each other while ignoring Sojiro's presence. Upon hearing what they said, he stood up and spoke abruptly. Are you going to look for Miss Toko?
Who else would we... Wait, what did you just say?
Toko, she's your enemy, right? You just missed her. He answered so casually, Aoko standing there dumbfounded. Alice stood up from the sofa and went to where the two of them were standing. Her typically kind and somber features turned reproachable.
Shizuki, tell me exactly what she did when she was here.
We drank some tea, then she took off her glasses. Huh? I can't remember anything after that. What was once a clear memory seemed to have been rubbed clean from his mind. Sojiro was overcome by the same dizziness he felt before. A sharp, dry smack echoed through the room. What snapped him out of his haze was an unexpected slap from Alice.
I won't warn you again. Never let anyone else into my house.
Deep within her eyes, beyond the normal cool indifference, was an intense fury. Realizing, however, that this was no ordinary anger, Sojiro understood how careless he had been. I'm sorry. This place is very important to you. I should have known better. Heavy silence followed. Both Sojiro and Alice stood there, chained to the spot by their own regret. Aoko looked on in amazement, wondering if they would stay this way for all night if left alone.
So hey, I know Sojiro's at fault for letting my sister in, but Alice, you never told him he shouldn't. We're not children anymore. So how about we put this behind us and focus on the problem at hand, okay?
Alice hung her head and sat back down at Aoko's insistence. Sojiro stood where he was, nursing his stinging right cheek. Pain was pain, but he knew how to take a knock. More to the point, the crisp strike from Alice snapped him out of his fog, jogging his memory. I remember. She told me to tell you we have no chance of defeating her, Aoko.
Pretty full of herself. Anything else?
She also said, well, most of it was small talk, to be honest. She said a lot of other stuff I didn't really understand. Considering the small talk was mostly about Aoko and her flaws, Sojiro decided it would be better to take that part to his grave. It's Aoko.
She mentioned the greater and lesser self. I wonder if she's been to India. In case you didn't catch on, Sojiro, she must have done something to you.
Aoko turned to him, glaring at him sharply. He had nothing to be ashamed of, but he looked away guiltily anyway. She did? What did she do, exactly?
You said you couldn't remember what she said, right? And up until a second ago, you looked like a zombie. I see. You remember right up to when she took her glasses off. Which means you must have been entranced by her mystic eyes.
As quickly as she jumped to that conclusion, Aoko went quiet again, as if the information was of little importance. But it was not enough to distract Sojiro from bringing it up again. Aozaki, what are mystic eyes?
infused with magical energy. Simple form of mystic eyes can cause temporary confusion, while more advanced ones can kill with just a glance, stuff like that. Eyes like Balor's are really just the stuff of legends. If there were eyes like that, we could really use them right about now.
I believe she's actually referring to the mystic eyes of depth perception, so...
Okay.
Without further context, Aoko knew her explanation was completely lost on Sojiro.
Oh yeah. To put it simply, it's like my magic bullet. Only use your eyes to shoot it.
You can shoot bullets from your eyes? Sojiro's confusion deepened along with Aoko's frustration.
Anyway, you looked into Toko's eyes after she blinked once, right? That's the moment she got you with her mystic eyes. Some mages even replace their eyes with cat's eye stones, but my sister doesn't need to bother with that. She was born with hers. She doesn't even need to say anything to use them. She can just blink like a camera shutter.
Sojiro pounded his fist in understanding. Now he thought about it, he vaguely remembered her doing something exactly like that. Everything after was foggy and muddled, and her mystic eyes seemed the only logical cause. That's one mystery solved. But Aozaki, isn't she your sister? Why would sisters try to kill each other? He knew it was not something he should ask, but he did it anyway. The question was against the rules. He had no business being involved in this dispute. Aoko closed her eyes to collect her thoughts. She decided it was for the best for all involved to at least share some background information, if only to head off further questions.
Fine. Here's what you need to know now that you met her. Besides, keeping you in the dark would be more dangerous. But no more questions. This is my story to tell, got it?
She stared down Sojiro until he nodded slowly in recognition. Knowing him, she knew this was confirmation enough. The conversation became oddly friendly again, but Aoko sat up a little straighter as she prepared to tell the tale.
Before we talk about my sister, I have to explain the Aozaki family. And more importantly, magecraft versus magic. We're going to cover a lot of ground, and it'll include stuff you can't tell anyone. But we can always wipe your memories later, so it's fine.
Aoko made sure to add that disclaimer as a condition for telling him the information in the first place.
You see, Sojiro, magecraft follows a set of common rules. There are different schools of magecraft, such as runes or Kabbalah. Think of them as different textbooks or manuals that the whole world uses. Anyone that has proper textbooks and a suitable bloodline can become a mage. But using magic is something else entirely. Magic, true magic, isn't just a manuscript derived from the swirl of the root like magecraft is, but something that comes directly from the root itself. For the swirl of the root, well, the simplest way I can describe it so you'll understand is to compare it to the sun. The sun is really far away, and has been that way from the beginning as far as we're concerned. Without it, you and I wouldn't be able to live. Magecraft merely lets us take advantage of the sun's benefit, so to speak. Magecraft is all about imitating or paying for natural phenomena. We can use it to study, practice, and recreate mystics' mysteries, but it can never truly create them. Actually, no matter how much you learn, you eventually hit a wall. It's like a limiter that human knowledge can never overcome. And beyond that wall is where magic, the sun itself, exists. To attain it means to go where no one can go, and awaken miracles no one could possibly reproduce. A technique to make things happen that humanity could never hope to accomplish with any amount of time or resources. That's true magic. It's about overcoming that dimensional wall running until you reach the ends where you'll find a world with completely different rules from ours. That's the only way you can, well, learn it. I told you before that Magecraft has no limits, right? Well, I meant that it has no limits within the scope of human knowledge. Meanwhile, magic has lots of limits, as in, it can only do one thing, and one thing alone. Makes sense, right? I mean, we're talking about unique, rule-breaking concepts and mechanisms that exist outside the boundaries of the very universe.
So, magic is more amazing than Magecraft? I think I get the general idea, but it's really limited?
Kinda. It's more like an exception, a special privilege, or an abuse of power. It's not versatile, but in making the impossible possible, it's all-powerful as far as Magecraft is concerned. Magic is like a reward a mage gets when reaching the Swirl the Root, and that even goes for mages who don't possess the metal to wield it. Just making a path through the root gives them free reign to use it, in Magecraft terms. In short, it's like becoming the richest person in the world.
Sojiro made an appreciative sound, impressed. On the other hand, Alice looked as though she wished to make many revisions to Aoko's account. Richest person in the world? In which case, does it mean that no matter how rich you are, only the richest person gets to have magic?
I guess so, sure. Sometimes you sure get to the right conclusion from the weirdest of places. It's like you said, there are many routes and theories to reach the root, but unless you're the first to the post, magic will elude you. No matter how good you are, if you're not the first, you're everyone else. There are only 4 magicians. And there are only 4 because once that path to the root has been taken by one magician, it's closed off to all others. But it wasn't always like that in ancient times. Ironically, mankind is responsible for closing out the paths to the root. We've built walls that stand between us and the truth. The mages of old could never have imagined that the more we explore the unknown, the more paths we would seal off. But the result was exactly that, and by the time they realized it, it was too late. After all that studying, true magic had all but disappeared from the world.
Huh, so it's kind of like how the city has dwarfed the countryside then.
In a microscopic sense, that example works. So, up until recently, modern mages have been vying for that final seat in the game of magical musical chairs. But some country bumpkins snagged it a while ago, so their little race is over. After that, all further research into the root was limited to mundane and meaningless magecraft. Though, only a small fraction of mages were chasing magic anyway, while the rest had already thrown in a towel. Magic gained from reaching the Swirl the Root isn't necessarily a mage's only goal. But that's a whole other convoluted mess itself. In itself, the chicken or the egg dilemma, if you will.
Okay, well, I at least understand that I understand absolutely nothing. Do you mind if we get to the point? Oh, right. How can there be multiple wielders of true magic if only the first one there can learn it?
There were 5 at one time. There are 5 final tasks left to humanity, so the first... Aoko? Right, to the point. Now that I've explained the relationship between magecraft and magic, I can finally talk about my family. Remember when I mentioned that the Aozaki family has been mages for generations? Our history isn't ancient, but we've been blessed with good luck and talent. Because somehow or another, an Aozaki finally attained true magic.
Hold on just a second. Ozaki, so you mean...
I'm an apprentice mage, nothing more. I can't wield magic, nor do I want to. I'm just a successor to the Aozaki family.
Aoko asserted obtusely, her voice devoid of emotion. She became a mage not to wield magic, but simply because the succession of her family's magecraft was forced on her.
Anyway, in order to reach the swirl of the root, generations upon generations of mages have to dedicate their lives to research. Since every special snowflake is trying a unique approach and doesn't want to share, it obviously takes forever. At any rate, you can't create magic unless you have the innate ability to, or through some sort of divine intervention. Just making it to the root isn't enough. If you lack a worthy heir to pass it on to, the miracle stops there. So much for your lineage. That's why mages cultivate their bloodlines to pass magical energy from one generation to the next, and to create an heir more powerful than oneself.
Aoko wrapped up the explanation by remarking that it was like producing a thoroughbred. Now that Sojiro knew what a thoroughbred was to begin with, leaving him as perplexed at the end of the story as he was at the beginning. So
mages pass along their uniquely created mystics to later generations, protecting their legacy in the process. And at the very end, they say that there should be an answer sufficient enough to satisfy all of our questions. But you see, mages, no, magicians too, all understand one very important thing. Their own generation and every single one thereafter will all die before they ever reach their ultimate goal. My grandfather always used to say that it was the destiny of those who obsess over mystics to end up learning only magecraft. Funny how my sister didn't turn out like that.
she left, I can see why, hanging in the air. Alice had no response. The Aozaki family passing down true magic. Aoko, the reluctant successor. And Toko Aozaki, her elder sister.
Actually, my sister was the Aozaki heir. They told me about the family legacy, but I never had to learn any of it. For mage lineages, unless they're super rich, they usually only raise one heir. I guess that wasn't the case for an average income household like ours. Successors are supposed to be chosen based on their affinity for magecraft, and in that sense, my sister was definitely a prodigy. But her talent just wasn't fit for an heir, or for whatever reason. Instead, I turned out to be more suited to succeed it. And, while I don't really agree with him, my grandfather seemed dead set on switching it over to me during the winter when I was 15. To my sister, I suddenly stole her entire birthright, while not only being 4 years younger, but also lacking any magical knowledge.
I see, so that's why. She said that she was obligated to take what was Aoko's. Toko's words from not moments ago, her voice full of resentment as she spoke them.
I'm not her, so I don't know how she feels about the whole thing. It's been 3.5 years since she fought with grandfather, smashed her glasses and left her home. No one has heard from her since then, and I became a replacement. I guess this is why we're squabbling.
Sojiro thought the story was tragic, but Aoko's voice had a tone of relief in it. Sojiro did not know exactly who he should feel bad for anymore. So, she broke her glasses?
Correct. Her eyesight has always been perfect. The bitch was even born with mystic eyes. But in trying to live up to her grandfather's expectations, she probably overdid it and her eyes suffered as a result.
Aoko wrestled with the memory, not sure if she had everything down exactly right. Sojiro knew how well Aoko could hide her emotions, and this was not one of those moments.
You know, now that I think of it, was Toko trying to give him a message? Why did she throw her glasses at my grandfather when she could have smoked him with a single fin shot? She was in her prime back then, so she could have wiped a senile old man out in an instant if she wanted to.
Sojiro shook his head, disappointed at Aoko's misjudgment of the situation. This isn't about any grudge. Those glasses, they were important to her. It was a symbol of all her efforts that everyone could see. To break them like that, it must have been painful. Painful enough for her to feel like she had to break them. As Sojiro spoke, neither Aoko nor Alice noticed the grief he was fighting to hold in. Or more accurately, they could not understand his point of view. After all, in a world where mages were a race to fight other mages, empathy was in short supply.
I wonder why she chose to come back now. Like Aoko said, Toko could have taken Misaki City anytime she wanted to. That's right. If she wanted this land so badly, she should have come back 3 years ago, killed me, and reclaimed her rights. Maybe she had a change of heart after seeing the world. I don't know.
You really don't get it, do you, Aozaki? Sojiro shook with a faint anger. His voice changed from the boy they thought they knew.
Oh, and you do?
Yes, like anyone would. Toko was waiting for you to become a fully fledged mage so that you would lose the same thing that was stolen from her. That's how deep her hurt and hatred goes. Sojiro gazed at them, wondering why they could not see what he could. Only he was the one that did not understand. The two girls, and above all Aoko Aozaki, deny themselves the type of relationships that other normal people are allowed to experience. Toko's actions were not fueled by hatred. Well, there certainly was hatred behind them. The real reason was and always has been Toko's pursuit of true magic. She was an ambitious and talented mage. Her hatred was only her veneer. Thinking of her in any other way would be an insult to the elder sister who devoted her life to the study of magecraft. All of this Aoko wanted to tell Sojiro, but instead stopped herself. Even if she had, Sojiro was not a mage and could never understand, and besides, arguing with him any further would not have brought her any joy. She could not have put it into words even if she had tried. And so...
You sure are taking her side a lot, Sojiro. Could it be love at first sight?
In her own cowardly way, Aoko dodged the subject. She smirked childishly. I get how she feels a little. I pity her. Sojiro did not take the bait. Aoko was frustrated about his reply.
And why, might I ask?
An icy glare replaced her smile. He did not falter, only plainly stating, because she has to fight her only sister. That's sad, isn't it? This was the source of his frustration.
Sad, all right.
Aoko's eyes narrowed unconsciously, as if hiding from a painful truth.
Guy's a poison.
She thought to herself. Poison with no antidote. With his words, he was unwittingly bringing her weakness to light.
My sister and I, we don't think of it in that way, though. To us, this was always the way it would turn out.
Sojiro looked down and frowned in defeat. And that's sad too, he muttered. The curtain of night had already fallen. Not even an hour had passed since Toko left the estate, and Sojiro was feeling the distance between him and the girls. Aoko and Alice felt much the same way about Toko Aozaki, who seemed more elusive than a phantom.
Anyway, Sojiro, you at least understand that she's our enemy, right? If so, stop arguing with me. and let sleeping bears lie. Although after meeting you, she must have realized that you have nothing to do with us, so I doubt we need to worry about her going after you.
Aoko seemed absolutely certain in her assessment, as if to proclaim that Sojiro had dodged a bullet. Strangely, she was placing her trust in her enemy's sense of reason. Really? Are you sure about that? I hope you're right.
Really, so relax. She never paid any attention to things that were of no use to her anyway.
Okay, if you say so, Aozaki. That's good enough for me. Alright, speaking of things she has no use for, Toko took your teacup. The nice Severus one.
What? And you just stood by and let her?
I did, so she really was stealing it after all, huh? Sojiro nodded sagely while Aoko fumed. She wondered what her serious manner and where the serious manner and tone had gone. Sojiro's frustrating absent-mindedness had returned.
Be the service cup too. My favorite one.
Aoko's fist trembling violently, but as much as she wanted to, she knew better than to plant it into Sojiro's carefree face. Not that he was even capable of... Not that he was even capable, but even if Sojiro did try to stop Toko, it would have gone tragically for him.
I guess. She always did have a habit of stealing my things. Always wanting what others have. I guess old habits die hard.
Isn't everybody like that as children? He wondered aloud, curiously.
Maybe. So many of my crayons and dolls she took as she pleased, and broke them too.
Sojiro felt his heart jump into his mouth. Yama's foreshadowing was not lost on him. Why do you think that was?
Because she made a hobby out of taking my property and smashing it to pieces, obviously. Once she had her eyes on something, I had to kiss it goodbye.
Listening to Aoko, Sojiro recalled his conversation with Toko. He hoped he was imagining it, but he vaguely recalled her declaring Sojiro Shizuki as someone's property. That is troubling. Sojiro's face turned grim, not unlike a detective at the scene of a crime. A scene which left no trace of evidence or clues as to how the case could have been solved.
Right? She was a terrible sister, the worst.
Unaware of Sojiro's turmoil, Aoko calmly sipped her tea. Sojiro watched as Aoko shrugged her shoulders before looking over to the drawing room clock. No matter how heavy the mood, time kept on ticking. Gloomy days ahead, I guess, muttered the undeniable victim of today's injustices. Aoko looked ready to move on from the incident, adding,
Probably, but right now, I'm just looking forward to tonight's dinner.
Alice seemed to second the opinion with her silence. Comfortable and relaxed, neither of them seemed to have any intention of leaving the sofa to prepare food. Tonight was supposed to be his night off from work, at least until midnight. But Sojiro knew until the clock struck midnight, he would be serving on hand and foot the two ladies of the house. For one, it would take at least another hour to prepare something to eat. And there was no way the exhausted Aoko and Alice would stand for that, so the only other option in the end was to have something delivered. Maybe I should have taken Toko up on her offer after all. Sojiro opened his wallet as he second-guessed the situation. His eyes settled on the third and final 10,000 yen bill in his wallet. It stared back at him forlornly, reluctant to leave its home. With a heavy heart, he bid it farewell. All right.
Good day for him.
All right. Let's see if there's anything new in the archive. Nope. All right, well, it's a little too late to start another chapter today, so I guess we'll call it there.
Oh, ominous though. Look at that background, howling them
Yeah.
eyes.
Yeah. I gotta say though, like Toko's personality is actually pretty different in different works. Like her first appearance was actually in the Garden of Sinners, where she kind of works alongside Ryogi Shiki and dealing with the supernatural in the city. And then, but there's also other works where she's a villain, so kind of just depends.
Want to do what you want to do then.
Yep. All right, so thanks for watching, everyone. We'll be back on tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we'll see you then.